Florida Republicans have officially voted to strip Disney of their special governing status. And we saw today their stock dip by a little bit. But it's not about that little bit. It's about getting woke and going broke. In the first quarter of this year, they're down, I think, 15%. Netflix is down 37%. And I do attribute that to wokeness. Now, of course, the media is trying to say they're losing subscribers. That's why it's happening. And it's all because of competition. Yeah, but they've also lost conservatives, libertarians, anti-woke people. And that adds up. So they're down, I think, 200,000 subscribers. They're blaming password sharing. But I have to be honest, the people who are password sharing probably wouldn't buy Netflix. They just be like, some might. I bet a lot won't. We'll see if they can recover from this, but we have a lot to go through as well because we have Jen Psaki, who is now crying on a podcast about Florida's parental rights and education bill. And then while that's happening, interestingly, McDonald's has a former CEO who is trying to purge wokeness from the company. Tesla, of course, is doing better than ever. Their sales are skyrocketing. And Elon Musk wants to buy Twitter, all of that good, crazy stuff. So we'll get into that. Plus, we'll probably talk a little bit about that doxing story with Taylor Lorenz and dive into those stories. Joining us today to talk about all of this stuff is Tom Fitton.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah,
and lady.
Thanks. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Tom Fitton. I'm president of Judicial Watch, which is the #1 government watchdog group in the country, if not the world, given the impact we have on figuring out what the corrupt politicians here or there in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere are up to. And we're confronting wherever we can and expose what's happening.
Right on. Got Seamus?
Yeah, we're excited to have you back. It was a great conversation last time.
Thank you.
I'm Seamus Coughlin. I am a cartoonist. I am the creator of Freedom Tunes. If you guys want to go check that out, we released a video yesterday on the Democratic Party's wonderful strategy of promoting grooming or opposing anti-grooming laws. And we're going to be releasing a cartoon tomorrow about the requirement for masks being removed by the government. So
I don't want to spoil your show, but I want to tell people what you were just doing.
I really want to.
Oh, my gosh.
All right.
I had to record some audio. Perhaps we
just
tell them tomorrow after it's released. You'd be like, I got the inside scoop
on what just happened because it was funny. All right. Because I don't want to spoil the joke.
Really
so
good.
Maybe tomorrow we can give a little sneak peek,
Yes.
a little audio sneak peek, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Happy 420, everybody! I just looked up what's 420, code term that refers to the consumption of cannabis. I still don't know exactly why or where, but I'm going to look into it. Great to see you. And maybe we can talk about later in the show corruption and the value of corruption, because I think in a system that's too ordered, there's no room for growth. Especially in an authoritarianly ordered system, you need what they would consider corruption to break out of it. But we'll go into that later.
Oh, man. It depends on the definition of corruption, I suppose.
Yeah, we will have to get into that for sure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in this evening. I was going to say 420 sounds like a police code, which would be interesting if people are being arrested for smoking marijuana. Hopefully that's not the case in your state.
Isn't that a 311 or is that Chicago thing?
Oh, it's possible. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, my friends, before we get started, we have an amazing sponsor. It is BioTrust's Keto Elevate C8 MCT oil powder. Head over to eatrightandfeelwell.com. And you can get your supply of Keto Elevate for up to 51% off today. This is it's medium chain triglycerides. Basically, you mix it in with your drinks or your coffee. It's kind of creamy, and it gives you that great energy. If you're trying to cut out sugars, which I've completely done, I've been doing? I've been mixing egg with walnut flour and then using that to make a bun for like an egg sandwich. It's delicious. I like walnut flour better than almond flour, but I love mixing this stuff into my coffee. Head over to eatrightandfeelwell.com. You'll get a 60-day money-back guarantee. Keto Elevate provides your body only C8, the most ketogenic MCT. That means it provides support for energy levels, healthy appetite management, mental clarity and focus, athletic performance. 5 grams of the highly sought-after MCT8 per scoop. Free shipping on every order. And for every order today, BioTrust donates a nutritious meal to a hungry child in your honor through their partnership with NoKidHungry.org. To date, BioTrust has provided over 5 million meals to hungry kids. Please help them hit their goal of 6 million meals this year. Free VIP live health and fitness coaching from BioTrust team of expert nutrition and health coaches for life with every order, and their free e-report, the top 14 ketogenic foods with every order. And I trust that the core fans of Timcast IRL have memorized that spiel by now. But thank you very much, BioTrust. we don't have that issue that some of these other podcasters have where they get canceled and they lose all of their sponsors. But I can only say you reap what you sow, gentlemen.
Also, BioTrust is amazing. That MCT oil is incredible.
Makes you feel good.
It's a little sweet. It's so good for you.
It's not really sweet.
Yeah, it's like if you haven't had a lot of sugar in your diet, you can taste the
I think it's
sweetness, like coconutty. It's incredible.
Head over to timcast.com and support our journalists. We've got people working every day, breaking news stories, reaching out to sources to get you accurate information. As a member at timcast.com, you are helping that keep going. And that's the mission. We're also working on building culture. Like we've got a kids show that's going to be based on Chicken City, family content, because we want to bring people towards our sphere of influence, which is to convince them about personal responsibility, liberty, all of that good stuff. That's our mission. You support it as a member, and you'll get access to exclusive episodes of this podcast Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. They're usually around a half an hour long, and we would appreciate your support. But don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends wherever you can. That's also powerful. And let's read this first story from timcast.com. Breaking. Florida Senate passes legislation ending Disney's tax privilege, self-governing power, and special exemption status. So Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, is like, they can just build a nuclear power plant on their own. Like they're able to do certain things that nobody else is able to do. So I think they're right to be looking at this and reevaluating it. I want to say the most important element of this story is that Disney decided to get woke. They thought they could push push all of us around and say, you know what? The activist employees are complaining about wokeness. Let's just give them what they want. Well, now they are seeing that you reap what you sow. You want to come out and you think that you can just adopt ideology. Say you will be political. Disney was outright like, we're going to defeat this bill. Florida said, okay, you want to get political? We'll take away your special status. Now we're seeing, as of today, their stock has dropped by 5.56%. On top of that, their stock was already hurting this year. It's good to see real economic consequences, right? Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, right, Disney? I want to see more companies who want to act a fool and play dirty games see actual accountability.
My thoughts were, yes, you break up that big corporate, monopoly, break it up. That's why we have antitrust laws. That's why we have a government in place, is to protect us from these insidious things like corporate people, whatever. But Tom, when you came in here, you made a great point that how far is this going to go? How much authority should a government have to stop the private sector?
Well, look, Disney is, the leadership of Disney is abusing shareholder dollars by spending them improperly to target or promote talking about sexual activities with young school children. And if you're a shareholder, you ought to be saying, why aren't you producing more and better product and increasing shareholder value? Go ahead.
Just real quick, I mean, on that point, should the shareholders sue for a violation of the company's fiduciary duty?
Well, I ain't no lawyer, but the people have been sued for less, that's for sure, in terms of stock fights and things like that and shareholder lawsuits. But secondly, though, you've got this special position that Disney has in Florida. It's been around since 1967, and they're talking about taking away some governance that benefits Disney corporate-wise and arguably the state. And so the concern I have is this being considered for reasons that are neutrally applied, meaning it's a bad idea to provide corporations these special tax incentives and such, or is it a political payback? And if it's the second one, the danger is that, look, the left almost always controls the levers of power. So if the new standard is that if corporations break free and start engaged in politics the way Disney has, either on the left or the right, is it going to be a free-for-all in terms of punishing corporations through government action? Let's say in California, they go after a defense contractor, or in New York, they go after a gun manufacturer. Well, in fact, that's actually what's happening.
Yeah, they're already talking about doing that without any of this being.
Right, it's already happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's been consistently people who oppose the cult wokeness fringe ideology who have been getting attacked.
What's happening in New York?
This is like the first time Republicans are like, okay, you know what? We're not going to tolerate you getting into this.
And to be clear, I'm not saying I oppose what Florida did. I'm just highlighting well, let's be aware of what's happening out there in the culture, and that corporations, when they engage in politics, there's going to be payback now and again. And, you know, Florida is making a policy decision. They got this major corporation that's decided to take the benefits they're getting from the public and target school children. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reaction you're going to get from the elected representatives of the public. Well, you're not going to use these special benefits anymore on behalf of an agenda that we didn't sign up for when we gave them to you to begin with.
I don't think it's as bad as you might be making it seem, whether it's intention or not. This is Disney, who has no business in education policy, deciding to come out because a fringe faction of activists at their company complained. They ignore the activists at the company who are like, we don't want to be involved in this. If a gun company in New York said, we are going to lobby for gun rights, I'd be like, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. If Disney said, we are going to lobby for entertainment rights and special privileges, I'd be like, okay, well, that makes sense. If a gun manufacturer came out and said, we're going to start dumping money into getting religion put in schools, I'd be like, they shouldn't be doing that. If they started, if they said, our mission is to defeat this, I'd be like, you're a gun company. What are you doing? Disney's doing exactly that. They have no business. They're doing it for PR reasons. Well, if they want to be involved in politics as a political organization, they got to play by the rules, and this is what happens.
I'll tell you what, man. Disney has been attempting to educate kids since the inception of the company. They made cartoons for little kids, and they put subliminal ideas like you see all sorts of crazy occult stuff in it. If you really look for it, and there's tons of YouTube videos about it, conspiracy or whatever. But that's the basic indoctrination of children is cartoons on TV, and that's Disney's specialty. So I'm not really even Walt was a great man, but when he died, so in my opinion, so did that company, man. It's no longer, they should have to change the name or something. That's abusive.
We'll read through some of these super chats, but someone did mention just now the buildings probably aren't up to code. So if Disney, it's Disney World, I think, right? Whatever.
Yeah, in Florida.
If they're under a special governing status, I'm willing to bet they do not conform to Florida building code, which means now that they lose this status, they're going to get shut down. I mean, hey, you want to bring Disney to heel, this is how you do it.
And when you see, and to Ian's point, I think it was Christopher Rufo who disclosed these Zoom meetings with Disney producers and executives and creators talking about pushing their agenda, this radical sexual identity agenda in the cartoons and in the content targeting at children. So for all of the caution, let's be clear here. Disney is engaged by their own admission in pushing propaganda on young children that parents would reject and taxpayers want no part of in Florida. That's what's clear. This wouldn't be happening if the politicians didn't think our voters don't, want this. And certainly Disney has every right, and they've got all the money in the world to persuade the voters otherwise to keep their special benefits, but it's a hard argument to make.
Yeah, so Disney is not a company that I happen to be a fan of, Ian. I agree with a lot of what you said, and I agree with what you're saying now. They essentially want to use their platform to push and normalize perverse sexual lifestyle choices onto children. On top of that, they have sex abuse scandals. We know that they have hired people who were convicted of child sex abuse in the past on the Disney Channel specifically. So not a good company. Yes.
iCarly, was that what it was?
I'm not. So, there's talk
so
about
many.
that, but there's talk about that, but I'm referring specifically to Brian Peck, who was convicted and then later, after he served, hired by Disney to consult over the phone because he wasn't allowed to actually be in the presence of children.
Right. Wow. And then there's just, if you just look at these memes, every few months they arrest child traffickers at Disney. Well, I mean, of course these people are going to want to work there, right? They want to get access to kids, and Disney apparently doesn't do enough screening to stop them, or they're not paying attention to the trafficking that's occurring under their noses.
We're all concerned about critical race theory in the schools, but at least there's political accountability there in theory. So everything you're concerned about in the schools is already happening on the Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, and it's all targeted at very young children. The far left is taking control of children's programming, and it isn't just reading, writing, and arithmetic, teaching kids how to read. It's social, cultural transformation on television, and Disney's now being kind of forced to admit it because they're in the business of teaching your kids values that are very different than the parents expect from the content. And if I am a parent, but we don't watch those Disney shows anymore. But I would not allow any of this children's program to be seen by my children until I had seen it first.
Don't give your kids cell phones.
Yeah.
Homeschool
It's the
your
truth.
kids.
Yeah,
So
really.
I defer to the big tech CEOs, these executives who don't give their kids cell phones. Why is it that the people who work at big social media companies are like, I'm not gonna let my kid have a phone, because they know what's on these websites.
Have you noticed like this weird social psychosis of the last decade has really coincided with the proliferation of these devices too?
Absolutely.
Streaming internet video.
It's simple. When someone's in a cult, to get them out of the cult, you have to separate them from cult members and deprogram them. But with the existing woke cult, it's right there in the palm of their hands. Every time someone says something, hey, this isn't true, you need to get away from this, they retreat back to their fantasy world.
And the most vulnerable is the children. That's the reality.
I'll tell you right now, what's one of the most infuriating things, because I can't stand the media lying, is the Taylor Lorenz story, where Washington Post, and I'll issue a clarification for things I was saying yesterday and things I said today, because I want to make sure I get all the facts correct. In the original Washington Post article that doxed the creator of Libs of TikTok, they linked to a real estate license, which included a private home address. It was a commercial residential mixed property listed as a business address, but also, according to public records, a private residential address for the creator of the Libs of TikTok. And they also explained, they didn't link to, they explained how to get their private phone number. So they said, the phone record is found here associated with this domain, which took me 2 seconds to just Google, and then
3 seconds to do a DNS lookup.
So I'm not, but I want to be careful with my language. They didn't link to the number. They just told you, gave you the instructions, the name you needed to look for with the thing to find it. And so this one's really frustrating, because I'm seeing many prominent left-wing personalities just go, they never linked to any private details. I'm seeing the Washington Post say, we never linked to private details. And I'm like, yo, these people are in a cult.
Well, some of them are saying they never linked to private details, and some of them are saying that it's good that they link to private details.
Yeah, so which
I'm
is
seeing
it?
both takes.
Well, now the door's been opened on that one. And, this guy responded to me, and he's like, Tim, your followers have been doing this for years. And I'm like, I don't think you watch my show. I don't think you know who our followers are. Like, we don't have that kind of audience.
You can't control your followers. You can
But
only give them
this is-
advice and guidance, but everyone
point
has to
is-
make their own choice.
We don't have followers who do that stuff. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people here and there who watch the show, but we are not on these platforms where we're engaging in overt activism. In fact, I told the guy, I think doxing the name of Libs of TikTok was wrong. And he's like, you mean to tell me that if you got the name of some Antifa account, you wouldn't publish the name? And I was like, yes, I would not.
Probably
How many
not.
times have you guys heard me say I won't say their name?
Yeah.
I say it all the time.
Minimize harm. It's one of the tenets of
I even
journalism.
sometimes refuse to say Cenk Uygur's name when the story is about the Young Turks,
true. Yeah.
because I'm trying to avoid drama and trying to talk about concepts and philosophy. These people, they don't. I feel like their goal is specifically to keep people in the dark for political power. They are evil. When the Washington Post came out and said, we never did that, and you can pull up the archive and just see that they did, I'm like, these people are downright evil.
So are they lying? They put a link to this address. Is that different than posting
They
the
said
address?
no. They said we did not link to it.
Okay.
Outright lie.
Total
They did.
lies.
I will assert as a statement of fact, the Washington Post linked to the private home address of the creator of Libs of TikTok.
It's as if they didn't think they were doing it, so then they said they didn't, but they did.
No,
Yeah,
they're just
well, and then
lying.
it-
They're
it-
just lying because they're evil people.
Yeah, and even if they didn't know, that's almost worse.
And then they deleted it, so obviously they knew.
Yep.
They edited the page.
Good point.
Yep.
I think a lot of these media become, they sometimes engage in journalism, but places like the Washington Post have just become left-wing advocacy groups that sometimes create journalism that's valuable. But, Judicial Watch, we're a nonprofit. We do lots of talking about policy. We educate people. We do journalism. But, it would be hard to argue that we weren't advocating for certain values. And the Washington Post is more activists than any political group I know in the movements of both the left and the right in terms of pushing forward narratives and agendas. And in the case of Lorenz, or outing the author of the Libs of TikTok tweet feed, it wasn't. It's problematic, obviously, that they exposed her, but more importantly, they lied about the content. And it wasn't. Right. It was exposing her to attack and belittle the content and cut off access to it from the public.
Is Judicial Watch a 501c3 or C4?
So we're a 501c3, which to those who don't follow the IRS code means we're a charity, meaning we can take tax-deductible contributions.
It also means you can't engage in overtly political activity.
It generally means that we can't endorse or oppose candidates.
Yeah.
And, I can talk about politics, but I can't, say vote for Republicans or Democrats.
Can you say who you're going to vote for?
I could in my personal capacity, but I choose not to generally because of the nature of our work, because we end up suing everyone.
I want to give Taylor the benefit of the doubt really quick, because it's possible that when she wrote this article, she thought she was linking to the business address, and then it went up, and then they were like, we didn't, and then when they realized they did, they pulled it down.
No, she's still denying it.
And so we're awaiting them to be like, actually, we did.
No,
that is the benefit of the doubt, at least.
No, Ian, you can't. She didn't. She outright denied it to me
But
personally.
it doesn't matter what she said. They did it. I know they did
Yes. She outright denied it to me personally. I did not publish the home address. Then the Washington Post said we didn't link to private information. They are just lying on top of lies because they are not good people. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt when they're lying like overtly. And I'm flabbergasted by it's like, imagine being, it's that Family Guy joke. Imagine being in an elevator with one other person who just lets out a big fart, looks at you and says, you did it.
Gaslight.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I watched you do it. What are you lying
Only
to me
benefit
about?
of the doubt in that I want to understand why it happened and never attribute to malice what could have been attributed to stupidity. It's a thing I've heard in the past, so maybe
Hanlon's razor.
I mean,
Doesn't mean they're not guilty.
my view on the Post now is if a Post reporter called me up to find out where a court hearing is, I say, oh yeah, it's here. What's the case about? It's about this. But if they're calling me up to talk about conservatives and what's our view on topic A and B, I say, I'm not talking to you. I mean, you're left-wing, dishonest advocates, and I'm not going to waste my breath talking and explaining our views to you so you can attack whoever it is you're trying to attack, usually people who are aligned with our values. And I'm not playing their game.
I want to make sure everybody understands this. There is no way you can talk to a journalist. You are not smarter than them. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. You will not go on The Daily Show. You will not go on Jim Jeffries. You will not go on John Oliver. You think you're smart. You think if I explain my positions, I'll tell you some of the tricks they do. First of all, when it comes to these comedy news shows, they'll just manipulate what you said because they're allowed to do it because it's a comedy show.
Easy.
But let's say you tell a journalist something explicitly like, I reject and refuse I completely reject racism. It is completely wrong, and I oppose these racist organizations. Instead of quoting you, if they want to get a narrative, they will say, when asked about their racist ties, they became belligerent.
Huh.
Right.
And you'll be like, but I told them they don't have to put that in there. They can just say they became outraged and belligerent. I believe it was because they were truly racist, and they won't tell the world what you said. I had a guy hit me up from the Daily Beast, and I gave him quotes. He cut out any quote that made me look good. And then here's another trick they do. You think you can give them a good quote, just one solid quote. They might still use it with ellipses. You'll say something like, that man who came out and said pizza is disgusting, that man was wrong. And they'll put ... quote ... pizza is disgusting ... quote. And they'll say he literally said those words. And when you were like, I was quoting someone else, they'll be like, did you can't sue him over it. It's a statement of fact. It said you said it. And you can be like, yeah, but I wasn't referring to that way. I'm like, you did it.
Yeah.
It's the story I want to mention about this reporter from the Boston Globe who wrote that Based Stickman, this is back during the Battle of Berkeley several years ago, was a white nationalist. And I messaged him and I was like, I saw you wrote that. And like, this guy's got his wife's like, Asian mixed race. He's got a mixed race kid. It's like, I think you're wrong. And he goes, is the guy white? I said, yes. Is he a nationalist? Yes, he's a white nationalist. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, dude, you cannot
follow.
You cannot talk to these people.
Right.
And so we see this all the time happen. Jordan Klepper, I think his name is, he shows up to these rallies and these people think they can talk to him. And then what he does is he cuts it all up and makes them look insane. And then he puts it on TV.
And who's he with?
It's Comedy Central.
I
don't know if he's still doing it. Maybe he's on the Daily Show now or whatever.
Yeah.
But they all do it.
Another problem with these like live shows with live audiences is unless the host is willing to tell the audience to shut up when they start booing and heckling, the audience will shout you down when you're making a good point, and then the host will be like, if they have an agenda. So you need like an ethical host to like keep everything ordered.
Not Jon Stewart. That dude's ratings are in the gutter.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do Politically Incorrect back in the day, back when Maher was on ABC, and I'd be the lone conservative typically, and getting booed all the time for the entire half hour, and it's not fun, but at least you get to say your piece because it's hard to edit what you're saying.
Right, those are better.
But I agree with you. Generally talking to the media is a bad idea. I used to talk to reporters at the Daily Beast, and I stopped talking to them because I give them a quote, and the headline would be "Conservatives get hysterical about X."
Yep.
So I'm not giving you material to attack America with. I'm not doing it anymore, and it's tricky because Judicial Watch, our goal is to educate people, so I want the word out everywhere. But when it comes to the media, it's been so corrupted. We can't play their game anymore.
And even there are many prominent YouTube personalities, independent personalities who are progressive or liberal, and it's remarkable how either they are completely incompetent or are just outright lying. And I'm confused by this, but I don't give these people the benefit of the doubt anymore, because there's a few people that I've actually DM'd with, and I'm like, here's the public record, here's the link to the story. Here's a screen grab showing where you can click it to get the address. We don't need to argue whether it was Libs of TikTok's private home address. Regardless, it was a private contact address for the individual. No, it wasn't. And I'm like, you know what? There's no point in talking to tribalists.
No, I think making your own YouTube videos or internet videos is really the way to go. They can attempt to take it out of context, and they can unethically sometimes, kind of. But you get your point across that way. Let's
talk about, we got this story from the New York Post. Jen Psaki breaks down while discussing harsh and cruel LGBTQ legislation.
Well, sounds mean. Sounds like there's some mean laws.
Yeah.
Here we go. There. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki began sobbing during an interview this week as she talked about a spate of bills that critics say are targeting gay and transgender children, claiming that kids are being used as weapons in a political culture war. Psaki was asked during the interview with News Not Noise podcast about legislation like Florida's so-called Don't Say Gay bill, which prohibits the discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity in kindergarten through third grade, as well as instruction on those topics, and in a place and manner that's not age appropriate. Quote, "This is a political wedge issue and an attempt to win a culture war," Psaki said as she began audibly weeping. And they're doing that in a way that is harsh and cruel to a community of kids. I'm going to get emotional about this issue because it's horrible, but it's like kids who are bullied and all these leaders are taking steps to hurt them and hurt their lives and hurt their families. And you look at some of these laws in these states, and it's going after parents who are in loving relationships who have kids. It's completely outrageous. Sorry, this is an issue that makes me completely crazy. Jen Psaki is a sociopath.
I don't want completely crazy people in government.
Well,
she admitted it.
Not going to get anyone else.
So, first of all, the New York Post should not be calling it LGBTQ legislation. New York Post, Mark Moore, you should correct this because the parental rights and education has more to do with parents having access to information about the schools, and gender identity and orientation is also about being straight. It's just orientation, which could be straight or not, in which case it is just legislation on sex ed. And it's not even that. It's the parental rights and education bill. So get that right. Jen Psaki knows this. Look, we are well past the point where I'm going to assume Jen Psaki doesn't know about what this bill is. She's crying crocodile tears to manipulate people because liberals are people who, according to Jonathan Haidt's research, are more interested in care and fairness, more emotional aspects, as opposed to sanctity, purity, authority, loyalty, etc., liberty. So when you approach a conservative, and they have 6 moral foundations, there's authority and loyalty, there is sanctity, purity, things like that. And you say, dryly and as matter-of-factly, they're going to say, okay, the left needs to win by making you cry, by crying and begging for care, begging for sympathy. So when Jen starts crying, she wants people to go, "Oh, Jen, it's so, aw."
Well, it's so embarrassing. I mean, I remember after...
No, but it works.
Freaking North Korea.
It works with some people. One thing that I saw after the 2016 election that really struck me was the fact that they were posting pictures of themselves crying. And I thought, how can you have such little dignity that you think that's a good look? I would be mortified. First of all, if I cried over an election and I was sitting there bawling my eyes out, you can believe I wouldn't be posting pictures of it on the internet the next day as if that was a good look for me.
As we're talking about it, I'm thinking Hitler's girlfriend probably cried when he killed himself. Like, yeah, crying emotional doesn't mean you're right. People get emotional about evil if they're on the side of evil. So
Yeah,
this girl's
them.
totally lost it.
Yeah.
I've watched murderers cry in videos of, like, they're in a criminal trial and they're crying.
I think Psaki's outsized role in the White House is something worth discussing beyond the points that you're making about her misleading and false statements. It's almost as if she's presidential. You know, they issued a statement from Jen Psaki on, I don't know, something had passed just last week or something that they objected to. And it was a statement as if the president had issued it. It was a statement by White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. And I remember thinking, well, this is odd. It sounds presidential. And to me, her outsized role in this administration is further indication of the diminished cognitive abilities of the president of the United States.
Yeah. Oh,
it's clear.
Come on, man.
She is running. Yeah, come on, boy. She is running the show, and certainly beyond any normal press secretary.
Donald Trump was
Except for Joseph
funny.
Goebbels.
Donald Trump was funny, and he talked in a funny way. You know what I absolutely love about Trump is this bit where he will say something outrageous, and then when the press challenges him, he'll be like, "Well, that's what I was told." like that, like if that absolves him of being wrong. So it's like, I laugh at that. I'm critical of it. Donald Trump will be like, you know, we've got this new medication coming out, and they're like, sir, you know, a question, Mr. President, that is not correct. You're talking about an old report that's since been debunked. Well, I was told this just a moment ago. That's what I was told. And it's funny because that's like his defense. Joe Biden is different. Like, that's Donald Trump's, like, cognitive faculties trying to muster up something. You know, he can't just come out and be like, okay, well, I was wrong about that because he's Trump. But at least he said something we understand.
Right.
Well, they told me that, and that's why I'm saying it. Joe Biden, he says, America can be described in one word. From an inheritment. And I was like, what word was that? and then you've got next nilrescent, Batacalf care, shouldn't on shop at a pressure. The dude's not even speaking words.
I think you missed his point. He was saying this country is indescribable. It's the feeling it gives him.
It's just the emotions
It was-
coming out
It
of
is
his mouth.
so overwhelming he can't speak.
You know, it'd be funny if, like, on the teleprompter, it actually said that. And it's like,
Indescribable.
when everybody makes fun of him, he gets sad because he thought he made up a great new word. Because
Well,
Does that not sound like a Snopes line? Dude, Webster's going to start adding this stuff to the
He's like
dictionary.
a rock
Right,
musician
right.
from the early 90s.
you know, on a sidebar Judicial Watch issue, we had caught Psaki lying about Biden's dog bites. You know, Major was running around and he wasn't just nipping at people because he was startled. He was shooting across the driveway to attack people, shooting across 10 feet of room to go after agents and biting the heck out of them.
didn't he hurt Biden himself? Like, Biden.
Well, Biden
Yes.
supposedly fell
He had
taking
a story-
care of.
Wait, hold on. Joe Biden was showering with his dog in the room. Right?
No, all right, so I got to pull the
And
story
he
up.
fell out of the-
So Joe Biden says he broke foot tripping after shower when he pulled his dog's tail.
Yes.
Why
This
was
is
the
real.
dog
That's
in the
an
bathroom?
actual headline.
Wait, hold
No,
on. Why
it's-
was the dog in the bathroom?
know,
Well,
but-
it's a German Shepherd. They are
just
protective
want
in
love.
that.
So-
They're going to be there.
He
In
says
the
the story.
bathroom?
To
If
be
you let
fair,
him.
all right. To be fair, we got the description originally from Joe Biden. It's not like Jen Psaki. It's not like Jen Psaki was out there like the president saw his dog and tried to grab its tail after a shower. Like Joe Biden's like, I saw my dog, man, after the shower. I grabbed his tail, the little rascal. It's like it's one of
It
the
does sound
funniest
something
things.
like
It's
something you do.
hysterical.
It does sound
It
weird.
sounds very much
We-
like a Biden quote. No, you guys should look it up and listen. It's actually
Great
hysterical.
story.
It's like one of the
Wow.
funniest things he said that we overlooked.
The most funnily accurate thing that Joe Biden has said
Yeah,
recently.
love it.
You know, but
I'm looking
Psaki
forward to
gets
this.
out there and she says, "Hey, you know, it was a minor dog bite." And the secret, you know, we just got the email. Secret Service agents were furious.
Yeah, they're not
They're,
happy.
you know, look, they're lucky they didn't have to put the dog down. It was
Yeah.
that crazy.
I'm surprised they didn't, man.
Let me read this. He says, "Quote: What happened was I got out of the shower. Actually, can you see that, Seamus?
Yeah.
Can you Joe Biden that for us?
Come on, man.
Yeah.
What happened was I got out of the shower. I got a dog, and anyone who's been around my house knows, little pup dropped a ball in front of me, and for me to grab the ball
Biden told CNN journalist Jake Tapper in the first post-election interview with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris.
And I'm walking through this little alleyway to get to the bedroom. And I grab the ball like this, and he ran. And I'm joking, running after him and grab his tail. And what happens is that he slid on a throw rug. And I tripped on the rug he slid on. That's what happened. Oh, man, not a very exciting story.
He said he was running down an alleyway.
So yeah,
it was his hallway.
He says he got. Maybe I should animate this one. We animated.
Good.
You should animate that story.
Because we animated the corn pop story and helped a lot of people understand it better. We just used his narration. But yeah, he's basically saying he got out of the shower. He got out of the shower and his dog had a ball, so he started chasing his dog and roughhousing with him.
I just want you to imagine this, right? So let's be fair. The dog must not have been in the bathroom. Because it doesn't say that. But so Joe Biden, is he wearing a towel or did he get out of the shower?
I was picturing him with a towel on.
I'm picturing him.
I hope he had a towel on.
Because originally I thought he climbed out of the shower naked.
He probably slipped in the shower and broke his foot, and now he's created this stupid story. And he's like, and what happened was, which is a sign of a liar when they buy time, when they're in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah.
Longtime journalist Ron Kessler reported that the Secret Service complained about Biden's swimming habits as being wildly inappropriate.
In the buff.
Yep.
Oh, wait,
man.
what?
Gross.
Really?
It's in the book.
You can do a lot with that one, Seamus.
I know, that could be an interesting cartoon.
I'm sure you can find the audio of him telling the story.
I remember looking for it a while ago because I had the same idea. This story was pointed out to me, and I couldn't believe that I missed it when it happened. So I was searching for the audio clips. I think I had trouble finding it. It might have just been something he said to a reporter that was quoted in the press and wasn't actually filmed.
The reason I think
if y'all can find it, send it to me, please.
I think he's lying about the story is because if he's going to tell a story about how he was chasing his dog down the hallway and pulled his tail and broke his foot, why would he bring up the shower part of it? It was completely irrelevant to the story. So obviously it was part of the story.
The bigger the story, the bigger the lie. That's the old saying. So typically among kids, when they're lying, they try to explain every possible thing. When in reality, it's like, how did you break your foot? I was playing with the dog. I fell.
Yeah,
that's it. It's like I fell playing with the dog. I'm like, oh.
But the reality is he's 76 and he slipped in the
like,
shower. I mean, that's my guess. I don't know that.
I don't know whether he's lying or because honestly, I 1,000,000% believe that this is something he would do. Do you guys not think that Joe Biden would like chase his dog out of the shower?
I think he would.
Hold on. You want to know what my favorite thing about the story was? The conspiracy theorists who kept telling everybody. When was this? This was December 3rd, 2020. The conspiracy theorists who kept pushing the election stuff said that he didn't really break his foot. He's hiding the ankle bracelet.
Oh, what?
Yeah, no joke. So that's what they were saying. And my favorite was when they started believing that Joe Biden flipped and was now helping Trump. And he was like, it's just
great.
Like, people look at a photo of Biden with a hurt foot, and that's what they think. And I'm like, dude, he's an old man. He fell. He hurt his foot.
Another reason I question is because, like, you saw what they did with FDR when he was getting polio, is like basically making him paralyzed. They hid that from people for like years, I believe. I'm not sure exactly how long, but they didn't want people to know the president wasn't doing well. They'll hide that.
There is no plan. I keep on saying there is no plan.
There's really not. Scary and sad.
Let's talk about that wokeness stuff, though. So we got this from CNN Business. Netflix's world has been turned upside down as stock plunges 35%. I think it's actually at 37%. And then we got this story from CNN Business. The magic is gone for Disney investors. This is from April 19th, just yesterday. And they say that Netflix has plunged more than 40% and Disney is down 15%. Ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to say, get woke, go broke.
Indeed.
Well, that's happening at Netflix. They gave as much, I don't know what the actual deal was. I've seen 12, I've seen $50 million to the Obama's production operation. I had Netflix on the other day, and who was pushed at me? Barack Obama putting out some globalist nonsense about parks and conservation and all of that. And, I guess I'm not allowed to say anything against national parks, but the point is it was propaganda. They're paying off a left-wing politician who, frankly, brings nothing in terms of creativity other than political activism. And so Netflix is focused on, as you've highlighted, both in the fiction and nonfiction categories, propaganda, and people are turning it off. And there are all sorts of other reasons for it. But if you're going, and the biggest reason in my view, and I say this only half jokingly, is that half the movies aren't American. So you're going, oh, this movie looks good. Turns out it's in a foreign language or, in an accent that's hard to follow because of the subtitles, and you don't
Well,
want to watch it. So it's garbage, it's leftist, and it's not as the quality they're supposed to be giving
What's
us.
with this weird overlap between the left and sexually inappropriate content for children or about children? That's curious because it's funny. When people come out and they're like, hey, we don't want teachers talking to kids about these adult matters, it's the left specifically that freaks out and says we're being attacked by the right. And I'm like, 60% of Democrats agree with these bills in Florida and these other states that kids should not be taught this stuff. But you've got Big Mouth. Is that the show's right?
Yeah.
Was just renewed for season 7. You know what that show is? It is voiced by adults, but it is about children going through puberty and engaging in overt
Apparently,
adult
for,
activities.
for 7 years, they're going through
Netflix.
puberty, I guess. Are they still in puberty?
7 years.
They're just
man.
living really slow.
Weird.
Yo, and people who've not seen the show, I've mentioned this before. Like, I think it's a messed up
It
show.
is
Yeah,
disgusting.
I mean,
You watched it?
Yeah, I saw I saw like half an episode at my friend's
turned it
house.
off?
Yeah, I walked out of the room. I couldn't. It's just so disgusting. They're 12. They're like 11 and 12, and they're talking about having sex.
No, they're not talking about it.
It's so gross.
They
dude.
legit
You'll
show
see
the
white. I'm not
they're-
even gonna.
Yeah. There's like a scene where the kid goes into a stall and they show it,
What
and I'm
the
like,
heck?
what? How is this?
So
Look,
gross.
South Park did similar lewd and crude jokes, and those I'm just like, oh
I'm not
man.
even saying it's gross like spectacally. It's gross psychologically.
Yeah.
It's I couldn't let myself even hear it because it was twisting
and
me. It was-
cuties.
So gross.
yep. No,
So that's why I don't have Netflix. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't wanna-
absolutely not. No, there's absolutely no way I'll ever have a Netflix subscription. I think part of it is that obviously, there are creepy people all over the world and in all parties, but if you're a creepy person who wants to normalize your disgusting sexual perversions, the Democratic Party has made it perfectly clear that they are a safe bet for you. And
I think
that's
it's
why.
not-
That's
it's
why
radical.
people
It's
on the
because
left.
they don't have the moral foundation of purity.
Yeah, that's one of the
So,
reasons. Yeah.
for those that aren't familiar with the moral foundations, man, I always try to get them off the top of my head. There's care, fairness, loyalty, purity, liberty, and
There's
what's
one more we can
is it
never
authority?
remember. Maybe.
Or is authority and loyalty the same thing?
I don't
I'm gonna look it up. What's it called again?
The moral foundations, Jonathan Haidt, Haidt. So liberals, when they have this moral foundations test you can take. It asks you questions. Some of these questions are really disturbing. And it asks you, like, to what degree are you okay with this thing?
Right.
And it'll be like, there's one where it says, a daughter takes her father's old, war flag and uses it as a rag to mop the floor or whatever. Are you okay with this? And so, these are the kinds of questions.
It was
they ask.
authority is the 6th. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was authority.
So it's liberty, sanctity, which I believe is the purity.
Yeah.
Loyalty, fairness, care, and authority.
Yes.
And you said, and that's 5 though. So liberty was added. After.
Liberty. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the 6th one.
Yeah. Libertarians only have liberty. This is amazing.
Yeah.
They don't care about anything other than let me do what I want. Be free. Liberals only have care and fairness. So if you're saying something like children must be protected, the sanctity of children and purity, innocence, etc., well, you're probably not going to be a liberal because they don't have that in their minds. They don't understand this as a moral foundation. So when you look at the moral foundations test, there are some questions that are like outright disturbing.
They're hard.
About like teachers and kids. I don't know if I would say it's hard. You just say is that okay or not? But some of it's like, an uncle. I didn't even want to say this. I can't even say these things.
Yeah.
But it's remarkable what someone would have to say is okay in order to actually get listed as a liberal and thing. Because I get listed as like libertarian, left leaning or something like that in these tests. But I have a balance of I have care and fairness is relatively high and then it kind of goes down. I'm like that kind of makes sense because I'm kind of in the middle. But you look at how liberals rank and I'm like, what question did they say they were okay with? Because that's kind of weird. Because they don't care about it.
Well, I've said this before. Leftism is essentially a synonym for social decay. It's the word that we use to describe it. And when you think about values like care and fairness, those are the easiest to make subjective. So there's no, that's not fair, or I care about this person. What does that really mean at bottom?
I disagree. I disagree a little bit. I think a healthy society has a left and a right wing. And the left is kind of experimental in a sense where it is a bit chaotic. And you could describe it in extreme sense as decay. But the right is supposed to keep things in check. So the left can be like, hey, we want to try this, we want to try that. And the right says, no. Okay, marijuana legalization is tolerable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so where I disagree is that the foundation of the left in where we get these terms is actually from the French Revolution. And what the left was doing was beheading people, murdering them, trying to like fundamentally restructure the society in extremely disastrous ways. So I agree that there are people in society who the left would argue they identify with or have a monopoly over when you're talking about creative people or folks who might be willing to challenge the status quo in some way. But that's not what leftism is.
That's a good point.
Robespierre, man.
You made a good point.
There are guys down at Occupy Wall Street who there's like one dude who said that it was his dream to be Robespierre. And I'm like, he died.
He got his jaw blown off, and they laid him on a table for 2 days to die.
They love it, man.
Well,
they love the idea.
I go back to the library cop on Seinfeld. I may be dating myself, but remember he goes, what's with you, Seinfeld? You want those pictures and kids to open the book up? And is that what gets you going, Seinfeld? And I think that's what gets too many of the left going in terms of discussions of sexual activity with children. And just like that, I don't believe in slippery slopes. We fall off cliffs morally.
Yeah,
and just
amen.
like that, this past 2 weeks, it's now a tenet of a major political party in this country to promote sex talk with young children.
In secret.
In schools.
In secret.
And to me, that's not left-right. This is a radical Marxist agenda. They want to tear us away from any competitor to their revolution. Tear us away from religion, from family, from private entities, business, and your biology and sexuality is traditionally understood. And they want to tear that away and put all of that into a mix that they will impose when convenient. They'll tell you what you're going to be, and because you have to rely on them, because you're just a cog in the revolution. And anything that gets in the way of that, any tradition or even biology, they want to destroy. These are dangerous revolutionary times. Using the word Robespierre, that figure, it's not inappropriate.
Yeah, well, and I'll take it even further and be more clear about it. It's not just that they want to have these conversations about sex with children. That would be bad enough. That would be a problem in and of itself. But they want to normalize perverted sexual behaviors to children
in secret.
In secret.
So I think I actually think schools should teach religion. I think there should be like religious studies. That's not to say they should tell kids you should be this religion. They should just be like, as part of our social studies class, like we're going to learn about various religions. But to the extent that they're allowed to do it, I wonder, because you can't teach the Bible in these schools. So I jokingly tweeted, I half jokingly was like, we should have religion studies. Kids have questions. Teachers should be allowed to give answers. If a kid sees the crucifix or a rosary or something on the desk, well, then the teachers should be allowed to give classroom instruction on Christianity, right? Well, of course, the left would flip out if that was the case. Then I added, teachers should also tell the kids to keep it a secret from their parents. Like that's just unheard of. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think the schools are capable of doing that. The left would never allow it to happen. And, my view is that you have to think about Uberizing education, that you find out who's available to give your children the instruction they need. You may not be able to do it through your own homeschooling program, but you have individuals out there who say, you want this taught? You want a third-grade education for your child? Pay me for 3 months and we'll get it done under your supervision and guidance, and you'll know what's being taught. Because the public schools, unless they're avowedly conservative, there's an old conservative truism that says any organization not avowedly conservative becomes left over time.
That's the thing,
and that's true, especially about the school.
I don't like using the word left. They become radical. The opposite of conservative is radical. Yeah. The whole liberal thing has been overutilized.
Hold on. And you made that point about going after kids. I don't see that as a left thing. I see that as a child predator thing. And I think child predators saw that they could weasel their way in with the left. They tried it by doing the LGBTP thing. The left rejected that initially, and they were like, no. Now you've got the MAP thing, minor attracted persons. People who want to go after kids, no, you're not going to be able to accomplish that with conservatives who have a moral foundation around sanctity. The only option is to get people on the left to agree.
Without God, anything is possible.
I like that you mentioned care and fairness and what it actually means and how they're maybe misinterpreting it. Because if you see a starving child and you think, well, the way I can be care about this kid is to give him food every day, you create a dependence cycle. Another good way to be care about that kid is to teach him how to fish. Now that kid can go and take care of himself. Now, what's the real sort of care? Is it to feed that kid every day? and make basically a slave out of him to you, or to teach him how to become independent. Both people, people will tell you that both of them are types of caring, but getting too emotionally invested in it, I think, is where things can start to get twisted.
Well, so when you would need a combination when dealing with a child, right? So, for example, the responsibility of the parent is to provide for their child and feed them, but also, as you mentioned, ensure that when they become an adult, they are capable of providing for themselves. That said, I think when you look at care and fairness, as I mentioned earlier, you can call anything caring or anything fair. It's what they do all the time. I mean, look at their tautological reasoning around the normalization of perverse behavior. Love is love. What does that actually mean? That sounds very caring. That sounds very fair, but it doesn't actually mean anything. You haven't explained why this is behavior that we should accept.
Yeah, sex. They're like, sex is on the internet, so we need to tell kids about it early. We care about them. You know, if you really care about your kids, don't show them the sex. These things are a radicalization tool. You do not give them to children.
Check this out real quick. This is from June 5th, 2019. Human Events. No Snapchat. Love definitely does have an age.
Oh my gosh.
So they go on to mention that, so this is Ashley St. Clair who noticed that on Snapchat there was a sticker that said, love has no age. What? And everyone immediately was like, yo, it does. It's over 18. Like, what is this?
There's lots of types of love. Firstly, there's 8 types of love according to the Greeks.
We
One of them is
get
eros,
that.
and that is not for children.
We get it. You mentioned
there's like
this a
child
lot.
love.
But no, that's actually, it's interesting you do mention the different kinds of love, because our culture, we just use one word for it. And I think part of the flaw here is that we have taken this idea of love in the sense of selfless giving and willing the good of the other person, and we've conflated it with
eros,
with the desire for sexual pleasure.
The reason why I didn't want to derail into this philosophical argument is it was literally about LGBTQ pride. The stickers on Snapchat was about LGBTQ issues, and it included love has no age.
Yikes.
All right.
Disgusting.
So they're not talking about platonic love.
They're talking about agape, the love of the community. It's like you don't know. There's
they're
different
not.
ways to.
They're not. They're not. They're talking about people who want to get married to each other.
That's erotic love. Eros
Yes.
is what it's called. Yeah.
Right. So we don't need to.
Well, they're using the word love to get you to trick you into thinking that it's about like familial love.
Right.
But
no, they aren't.
It's not love in the metaphysical sense.
Ian,
that's for sure.
You love to talk about love's different forms. That is immaterial here to what we're talking about. When you're talking about LGBTQ, we're talking about issues of people who want to get married and have relationships with each other. One of the words in there is bisexual. When they say for LGBTQ positive branding, love has no age, there's no reason to elaborate beyond that. We know what they're saying.
Agreed.
Well, I mean, you have familial love. Your mother loves you as a child when you're born. But that's
love. Not how they mean it.
Well, it's a different kind of. They're abusing. They're twist. That's the problem. I mean, you said it clearly. That word is too vague. Love is too vague. It's too vague. The Greeks had 8 different types of it. Why don't we?
Well, you know, getting back to the issue of the focus on the sexualization of children. The left, in my view, the organized left, the extremist left, I'm not talking about liberals. I don't think liberals hate children. But the organized revolutionary left hates children. They hate childhood. They have no use for it other than as a prop for more government and more revolution. So what else would you, if you hated children, what would you do? Well, you'd traumatize them with sex talk. You'd kill them in the womb.
Yep.
You'd do all sorts of things that the left is doing. And to the degree they talk about childhood, it's about collectively raising children. It takes a village to raise a child. This is not a child-friendly philosophy. This radical ideology.
It's fundamentally anti-family.
I want to make sure we have a little bit of good news here. We not always just complaining, but we have this story from the Daily Mail. Former McDonald's CEO who invented the McNugget. Oh, good for him. Sets up new group to fight back against woke corporations and buys enough Bank of America shares to formally propose that firm scraps staff CRT training. Whoa. Ed Renzi, who served as a CEO of McDonald's in the 1990s, is partnering with conservative groups to fight back against woke corporations. He formed the Boardroom Imitative, a partnership between the Job Creators Network, the Free Enterprise Group, and Second Vote. The goal of the group is to protect shareholders and employers of publicly traded companies from woke policies and ensure corporate accountability. It comes as left-wing groups continue to buy up stocks in businesses until they raise enough clout to lobby the board to adopt leftist policies. Companies are also being forced to the left so they can receive high ESG score, which would make them more profitable. I would argue this environmental social governance thing they're doing these companies that embrace this violate their fiduciary duty to the shareholders, and the shareholders need to start filing lawsuits on those grounds.
Well, companies that do that should be subject to scrutiny by the feds and state authorities because, in some states, and generally speaking, the law is when you're charged with investing someone's pension money, you're supposed to be trying to maximize the return. And that's your priority. Using it for other purposes to end the oil industry or advance social agendas is contrary to law. So it's not even a question of lawsuits. It's a question of, are we going to have law enforcement pursue these companies? And you've got these big companies like BlackRock, Vanguard that are pushing this. And what's interesting is they push it here, but they all own shares of companies abroad. They don't go tell Chinese companies, you need to follow our woke agenda. They tell American companies. So I think the conservatives have to understand that corporations are largely controlled by the left, and they're misusing and abusing our funds. And it's not a question of a political difference. It's a question of misconduct by the investors and, as you point out, the corporations that are misusing dollars and misusing our retirement dollars, misusing shareholder dollars and misusing our retirement dollars to advance a political agenda. That's why Florida's pulling back Disney's tax benefits, because they're misusing the trust that the public has given them through these tax benefits.
Conservatives are getting aided now in the culture war by post-liberals, people who were very much involved in culture and arts, but because the woke left has gone so insane, because they seem to have no principles, you have people probably like us who all of a sudden are just rejecting and opposing this. One of the challenges we face in all of this is there are still people who don't realize the shift and what has happened. So you still hear these old talking points about Republicans are pro-corporation. It's like, haven't you been around for the past 5 years where the conservatives were saying regulate big tech because of censorship? Yeah, times have changed. Donald Trump brought a lot of people into the Republican Party who are not traditional or conservative in that capacity. And now we need to find a way to get, people on the right who are still very much like, I don't want to regulate corporations. And we got to get people on the left to realize they're being screwed over by the corporations. Then we can make those changes.
Well, it's not regulation to enforce the laws against fraud or against the misuse of dollar. I mean, we're not asking for more. I don't want more regulation of Twitter. I just want them to be held accountable for lying to regulators and shareholders and users in Congress about the purpose and the process of their censorship. Same goes for Facebook and Google and YouTube. They're lying when they're saying they're applying neutral principles. And there's an algorithm that can't be messed with. And don't worry, it's equally applied. It's a big lie. And it should be investigated as such, the way that the oil companies were being investigated for, quote, lying about climate change, which was bunk. But we've got to enforce the law against these companies.
If Elon Musk gets a hold of Twitter, and that appears to be the news right now, that he's going to be raising some money and making a move within like the next week or so, he's going to get all those documents.
Well, he doesn't need to wait to get control. As a shareholder, he can ask for documents about the processes that I'm talking about. How is it the decision was made to throw off Trump? I was blocked for a tweet I made about hydroxychloroquine. That was completely accurate. Twitter had found it to be accurate. Someone complained about it. They said it's a violation of the rules. 3-4 months later, they locked me out of my account for posting the same darn tweet. I mean, they're lying when they're saying they're doing things neutrally in a way that could survive scrutiny. If they would survive scrutiny, we should rely on Elon Musk to get the documents out. I think that's an opportunity for him to demand those documents as a shareholder.
It seems to me that if we want to go legally after these just corporations in general for abusing their shareholder trust, that it would have to be a decentralized move of lawfare. So, because if one unit, like if you were the only one to go, then you're like not a target, like they did when the FBI goes into James O'Keefe's house, like because he's the head of Project Veritas, duh. So like we need everyone to go after it together, and maybe not. That's obviously hyperbole, but we need enough people pushing against these corporations for their fraud narrative, if there is such, that it's. I mean, that's what the spirit of the United States is: decentralized movement.
Yeah, we're in a great suppression. I call it the Great Suppression. I mean, where thought is being suppressed. We have the Biden administration calling in big tech companies to encourage them to censor people.
That's right.
The big tech companies are doing it. I know Judicial Watch uncovered that they were taking material down at the behest of government agencies, our material, other material. So, I mean, the idea that this is some sort of private actor out there, no, it's part of it's collusion. And it's a crisis in the sense that, we're in this revolutionary period. They want to suppress our speech. And yes, they want to jail us, as James O'Keefe has found, as those being targeted by the January 6th committee is finding. I mean, they're now taking the position that if you were on an alternative slate of electors in a disputed election, you're being investigated by the Justice Department. They want to jail their political opponents. This is a revolutionary period, and our republic is tottering. Our republic is tottering.
Absolutely agreed. I wanted to ask you something about the instance you brought up with the White House actually instructing social media companies to censor certain things. My understanding based on hearing that is it sounds like a blatant First Amendment violation, but I'm curious if there's some kind of legal loophole they're exploiting in order to get away with this?
Well, there's always legal loopholes. The question is, are you going to have individuals in positions of power to do something about it actually exercise all their prerogatives? So, for instance, President Trump was impeached for no good reason.
Yeah.
There are plenty good reasons to impeach Biden, and I'm not seeing Republican leadership talking about that in any significant way. The Justice Department is controlled by Joe Biden. The opportunities, it seems to me, in terms of enforcement against these companies is at the state level. And, Ron DeSantis is taking some leadership roles there. There are some more aggressive attorney generals at the state level as well who understand going after Twitter in Texas, demanding documents. They're in a big document fight with Twitter about their censorship policies. But it's got to be coordinated. I mean, they're attacking our freedoms and our civil rights and our civil liberties. And, these are God-given. These are God-given civil liberties. Our right to express ourselves is God-given. It's recognized by the Constitution, but the right exists separate and apart from it, and everyone's coming after it.
When you said Joe Biden is in control of the Justice Department, do you mean by appointing judges?
Constitutionally speaking, he's control of the Justice Department. It's his appointees. The Justice Department is run by the left. It's a Democratic agency. Most of the agencies are controlled by Democrats and leftists, and the Justice Department is a locus of evil when it comes to public policy in our country. Every bad thing the government does, the Justice Department defends it and or participates in it.
But it's supposed to be a neutral entity?
It's supposed to be an entity that reflects the will of the people through its appointed representative or elected representatives, such as the president. And he has the Justice Department is run by his Attorney General and other senior appointees who are confirmed by the Senate. So that there are those checks in place. But the agency tends to do what it wants to do. And if there's a Democrat in office, they're free and clear. And if they're a Republican in office, they're still free and clear.
Yeah, they used to be at each other, like John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Man, they would just argue. They'd get up there and be like, I'm your vice president because I don't agree with you. And we're not going to screw this up. No, it's not a cult.
So I'd like to ask you, what's our way out of this?
Well, I always tell people, all you can do is what you can do. Are you doing what you can do? Are we using all the tools available to us under the Constitution and our system of government to enforce the rule of law and protect our rights and liberties? Are we doing what we can do at the state level? Are you active individually with your party? If these issues concern you, are you communicating with your elected officials and your friends and your colleagues? Are you running for office? Are you participating in the party mechanics? You can complain about the Republican Party, but if you're not participating, some loser is probably participating who's in it for all the wrong reasons. And then once they're elected, we need men and women of ambition who understand their role in history and to protect our republic and to say we're not turning over the reins of our government to unelected bureaucracies. We're not going to play this game where we sign a check once a year for $4 trillion and then see what happens and then complain about it after the fact. It's like, the government, Congress is like the guy who says, the firefighters who set a fire and then show up after the house burns down and starts complaining. Well, this is terrible. They're all responsible.
You mentioned January 6th, and we do have this story which just came out a couple hours ago. On Twitter, everyone is, people are saying that Alex Jones has flipped. Huh. Yes. According to the New York Times, Alex Jones reached out to the Justice Department about a January 6th interview. They say that through his lawyer, Mr. Jones said he has given the government a formal letter conveying his desire to speak to federal prosecutors. The lawyer, Norm Pattis, maintained that Mr. Jones had not engaged in any criminal wrongdoing that day when chanting slogans about 1776. As a condition of being interviewed by federal investigators, Mr. Jones, who is known for his rants about the deep state and is supposed to control and its supposed control over national affairs, has requested immunity from prosecution. The first thing I would say is I don't trust the New York Times on stories like this. But the other thing I would say too is everyone's saying, a lot of people on the left, they're like, he's flipped. I'm like, Alex Jones is on video yelling at them not to go near the Capitol, that it was a trap not to go in.
He's not going to get immunity from prosecution. First of all, there were no crimes that are being pursued here other than perhaps against some of the January 6th defendants who actually committed violent acts in violation of the law. The Alex Joneses of the world, to the degree they're facing any liability, it's because of corrupt prosecutions or activity by the FBI, DOJ, and the Democrats in Congress pushing them. And, my understanding of the federal system is that you don't get immunity. What they do is you plead guilty to a crime, accept a punishment that might be mitigated as a result of your cooperation. They don't give out typically immunity for crimes. They make you plead guilty. So, my guess is Alex Jones wants to roll the FBI and tell them the truth about what he did. And, I believe he didn't do anything wrong. The people
who believe the most psychotic conspiracies about January 6th believe insane conspiracies about what this is right now. He's flipping. Oh, man, he's there. He's going to rat on Trump. The funny thing is, that's
the crazy talk, that there's something to flip over.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So we had this really fun moment in January where I said that the people who were, waved in to the Capitol or who walked up and the cops opened the doors and said, let them come in and said, I respect your right to protest, and took selfies with them. These people, it's how are you going to get them on trespassing? How are you going to get them on, trespassing in the Capitol if they're invited in? You won't be able to do it. And the Young Turks did this segment where they were like, Tim Pool is so dumb, he's so dumb. And then what did we see? There's actually a guy got the charges dismissed because he was like, they let me in. The judge was like, you're right, they did. Have a nice day, good sir. So I imagine there's a lot of people who, obviously the ones that were fighting. There was one guy who got his charges dismissed relating to like mischief and vandalism or something. But he got trespassed because the judge was like, yo, you climbed over something to get in there. You knew you were trespassing. So we're going to see the people who are violent get charged. We're going to see the people who are let in. Probably a lot of these people are going to start getting, not guilty pleas or not guilty verdicts. But the people on the left who are seeing this story right now because they're tweeting about it, this is the exact same thing as the people who thought Trump was going to show up on March 3rd or whatever and walk into the White House and that Joe Biden had an ankle bracelet or whatever.
And arrest everyone. Yeah.
Right.
And it ain't going to happen. And, the real scandal is, we've sued for all the records, all the videos of the Capitol. We sued the Congress for it. We're in court. Nancy Pelosi's Congress is telling us that they have sovereign immunity, meaning they're immune from lawsuit. And none of the record, they're not public records. And even if they were, the public interest doesn't require their release. So it's the worst day in American history, but there's no public interest in releasing the records. So, in my experience, when you don't want to release 1 second of video, even voluntarily, what are you hiding? And I'm sorry, guys, but, this whole Michigan collapse, the Whitmer kidnapping collapse, means we should take a look at if the FBI would break the rules there. Did they break the rules in some of the January 6th activities? And I suspect we're going to find out that's the case.
Absolutely. I mean, look, anyone who knows the name Ray Epps can tell you that there was almost certainly foul play here. And we should just say to them what they've been saying to us over the fact that they've been collecting people's data in bulk. If they have nothing to hide, then they should have nothing to fear. Release the tape. Show us what happened.
Ray Epps is interesting. He was a dude at a rally, whatever you want to call it, event, January 16th, and he was like yelling for people to go to the Capitol, I believe.
And they
on
started
video.
calling him a Fed. Everyone started like, yelling at him, calling him a Fed, and shunned him.
And then all of a sudden he disappears and he's not prosecuted. Is this right?
He turns up in a bunch of videos encouraging people and inciting them to riot.
And not prosecuted. With the amount of spy tech we have, how is that guy not being prosecuted right now?
What about the guy who planted the bombs? They didn't find that person either.
Never found that. That story just disappeared.
Yeah.
Just completely disappeared.
Well, and supposedly Harris was in the neighborhood.
Yes,
and
Harris
Secret
was
Service
right
didn't
there.
find it. What the heck's
Yes,
going on?
They said Kamala Harris was right there that morning. but then they just stopped looking for the guy who planted them, apparently.
I mean, God help us. I hate to get back to the Secret Service. They get attacked. The agents were attacked for complaining about being attacked by dogs. We found out the Secret Service top people or people in the position to protect the president were being targeted with a scam, some type of fraud by these two shysters in D.C. They were offering them gifts, and the Secret Service didn't even figure out it was going on. I think it was the Postal Inspection Service that figured it out. So the Secret Service is dysfunctional, and as someone who doesn't want to see anyone in a position of power harmed in the worst possible way, I worry about our security look. January 6th highlights that the government can't protect us. They blew the security on January 6th at the Capitol. The Secret Service is just this side of dysfunctional, and these are major issues. I mean, why is it we think the Secret Service is any better than any other government agency?
Yeah, Olivia Rondeau went on Kennedy Nation and said something really profound, and I hope I get this right, Olivia. It's that the government is there to serve us, not to take care of us. Remember that. You're here to serve us. We put you there on purpose so that you can work for us and get this done right because we're all sovereign.
You're right, but at this point in our country, in the past 100 years, it's just like, dude, that's just not the case anymore.
But that's the American spirit. Without it, that's the nature. That the country is just a piece of land where people are getting along next door to each other. If we don't have that belief in common, then things can go pretty nuts.
We are seeing in cities, Democrat-controlled cities, non-citizens being granted the right to vote. The moment that happens, you don't have a country. Like it's happening. The presidential election, the Electoral College, is influenced by non-citizens. I think there was 1 or 2 votes in favor of Democrats because of the amount of illegal immigrants in California or something like that. The congressional seats are not apportioned based on citizen count; they're based on population count. So if you have 1 million non-citizens in one area, they're going to get an extra congressional seat and an extra electoral vote. These things are ripping. We're a ship. We're a big cruise ship. Those things are holes in the ship, and we are taking on one.
I'm a realist. Or do you think that we're just headed towards globalization and we got to figure out how to roll with it?
Oh, well, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So the issue is, to a certain degree, globalization is not a bad thing. The bad thing is the authoritarian takeover and the destruction of our sovereignty. You can have international agreements. We can do away with war. We can have this beautiful planet, but in this area, we have our own laws. We make our rules. We live according to our values and things like that. The problem is the World Economic Forum doesn't like our values. The Davos group doesn't like our values. The values they want for the world are more like China's. Yeah, I don't want to live that way. So that's the real problem. We had Elad Eliyahu on, and he said he likes a unipolar world. He doesn't want China to gain influence. He wants the U.S. to dominate everything because our values are better. And I'm like, he's being honest about it. And we need to recognize that. In the world of the globalization, as it's colloquially understood, is Chinese-style social credit systems. We can have a kind of international relations that can, end war and have international courts where we retain our sovereignty and our values persist.
Do you think we're really ever going to end war?
So I think what likely would happen is we may have already done it in the traditional sense of how we've known it, or be getting really close to it. Obviously, Ukraine and Russia right now, there's hot war. But will we break past that point where it is just not economically feasible or worth going to war? Instead, you'll see shady dealings, soft power, manipulation, or fifth-generational warfare. So conflict will always exist in some form. But when we're talking about modern warfare and we get to the point where we're like kinetic warfare is fading away and now it's all manipulation games, it'll be psychological manipulation.
Well, this is Ukraine is kind of the highlights that war is a feature of the human condition. And, we spent trillions of dollars on our national security apparatus, the diplomacy, USAID, obviously our defense and intelligence establishments to prevent war in Europe. And it happened in a heartbeat. And I
think you could argue it's because of what we've spent.
Ukraine isn't Luxembourg. Yeah. It has 45 million people. So this is not an insignificant military action by the Russians. And we paid these guys to stop crap like that from happening. And they couldn't figure out how to stop a gangster from going down the block and breaking someone's window, you know, and I'm exaggerating obviously for effect there. But Putin was stoppable. And my view is this is where the corruption comes home to roost. He sees Biden, his cognitive challenges. He knows Biden's on the take because he's on the take in part from Russia based on the information that's out there. So he sees a corrupted, infirm leadership in our country, and why not do what he did? I'm not saying it was the reason he did it, but some of the stoppers that would have been in place as a result of a competent, strong America that wasn't corrupted weren't present. And to me, that's the result is death and destruction in Ukraine.
Yeah, man, that's why integrity is so important as an individual and as a nation, all of it. Because if you are no longer, your word is no longer good, no one's going to take you seriously.
We had documents. I love these documents we found because, you know, I go back to them all the time. And there were these documents just before Biden, just before Trump came in, Biden went and visited Ukraine. And the two top State Department officials in Ukraine are talking about his visit, the anti-corruption visit. And these were the two officials who testified against Trump. And they were talking 3 days before Trump came in that Biden's there and the Russian press is making fun of Biden's anti-corruption issues because his son is on Burisma. And they said that the Russians were trolling Biden, and and the State Department guy goes, Burisma is the gift that keeps on giving. So, you know, we've got the State Department telling themselves they're making fun of our country. Our foreign policy objective, let's say neutrally, was to stop corruption in Ukraine, was being hampered by the vice president's family corruption. And we're supposed to forget that when Ukraine is invaded 4 years later.
I think when Obama said never, what is it, something about never overlook Joe's ability to screw something up. And he said something along those lines. He wasn't joking.
Yeah, he didn't say screw. Yeah. He used the F word.
Joe Biden screws up words. I mean, it's
apparently familial board corporate relations in Ukraine too. Hunter should have never been on that board, man. That's nuts.
Yeah, the challenge we face internally is tribalism. There are people who have built careers off pandering and they won't give it up. It's true on the right, it's true on the left. But I think what you have right now going on for the right is that, like I mentioned, the post-liberal types, people who were Democrat voters before, who are more interested in principle and integrity, are sitting here being like, look, I can watch Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro will be like, Joe Biden was engaged in corrupt behavior in Ukraine. And I'm like,
okay, gang.
And right. Okay, gang. He's engaged.
Okay, Joe Biden did bad things in Ukraine, right? It's really quite obvious based on the tape we've seen.
Thank you, Seamus.
You're welcome.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, he's completely right. And then he'll come out with, you know, some political position on policy as a response, and I'll be like, well, I disagree on your response position. Like, but if we agree on the facts, that's what's happening. Any sane, reasonable person knows Joe Biden is crooked and doing crooked things. I mean, flying his son on Air Force 2 to China for a private equity deal. Why are you using our resources for that? But you'll get these people on the left who are just like, didn't happen. Yeah. Didn't happen. That's why they won't come on this show. I mean, invite them on the show, they'll make an excuse. Because they know we'll sit down and I'll pull up all of the stories and all of the videos and they'll have to sit there and listen to it. And then they're going to have no choice when their fans are watching and like, I didn't know that. It's like, well, because they didn't tell you.
You know, I never understood. Well, I guess I do understand, but politicians of both parties always misunderestimate. Is that the right word?
Misunderestimate. That's right. That's a man. I almost forgot about that.
I'm doubling down on underestimating it. The corruption is a driving force for so much of the electoral public. You know, remember when Nancy Pelosi came and took over Congress in 2010? You know what her big piece was? Her big slogan? We need to drain the swamp.
Huh. Yeah.
So, you know, and what happens is these politicians run on battling corruption in Washington, D.C., both parties, and then they get here, and it doesn't get done. And in the case of Trump, he actually did want to do something, and none of his appointees thought it was important. Republicans don't care about battling corruption. I know there are exceptions, and the exceptions prove the rule. Democrats have incorporated corruption, unfortunately, into their governance style. They turn their offices, in the case of the vice president, into a racketeering operation. So this to me, there's opportunities on both sides of the political aisle to run on a reform anti-corruption agenda with teeth.
Yes, but I do think Republicans have their degree of corruption, as evidenced by this story from Timcast.com. Candidate Robbie Starbuck responds to being kicked off Tennessee ballot. Starbuck told Timcast he is exploring every legal option to remain in the congressional race. That's right. They tried passing this law to bump him and another individual off the ballot by saying they didn't live there long enough. Turns out Robbie actually did live in this district long enough. Right. Now I guess they're claiming he's not a Republican.
What?
Robbie Starbuck, Morgan Ortagus, and Baxter Lee were all disqualified from the upcoming primary after the party's vote on April 19th that they did not meet its standards for bona fide Republicans. Their candidacy was challenged earlier this month, triggering a vote by the state election committee. According to the bylaws, a candidate is required to have voted in 3 of the last 4 Republican primaries or have state Republicans vouch for them. Quote, "The idea that I am not a Republican is most offensive, because if I am not, who the hell is?" Starbuck said. Starbuck, he apparently said, let me see if I can find the quote, that he's been, the 33-year-old said he had 14 vouching letters affirming his status as a Republican, including statements from several county party chairs and the leader of the Nashville Young Republicans. He was also endorsed by U.S. Senator Rand Paul in 2021.
Wow.
Starbuck largely attributed the party's vote to institutional corruption, believing that Republican leaders in the state would prefer a controllable rhino.
Right.
This is how the system works. In order to get into office, it's through one of the 2 parties. The parties are private organizations who can do whatever they want, so they are blocking Robbie Starbuck from being able to run because he's a real candidate.
Well, and this goes to my point. So there are probably a lot of conservatives in Tennessee, and we may presume, well, Tennessee, that's got to be conservative down there. Well, that Republican Party leadership has been a long time moderate operation. I mean, the Republicans from Tennessee, at least in the Senate, haven't been as hardcore as I would have liked. And this is why people should participate in party politics. You can't spit from the outside and expect the party to change. If you're a Democrat, get involved in Democratic politics. If you're a Republican, get involved in Republican politics. If you don't, that's what happens.
Yeah, I wonder if it's also because of Nashville being in Tennessee. Whenever you have a large urban center like that, it skews your elections to the left.
And you get fake Republicans.
Yeah.
Well, Robbie's
looked
definitely
like
a Republican. I know the guy. I've looked him in the eyes. I mean, I'm kind of being facetious, Robbie. Okay.
But he is.
What you just said for people to get into politics, I cannot fathom how to fix the system from within the system because the system is busted. It's like being on a broken train that's about to go off a cliff. If you have the chance to fix it from above and you can actually see the whole train and fix the tracks, now we're talking. But if you want to get on board, man, how can you fix the train and the tracks from inside?
Well, it's the same thing about the school board fight. You have to be at the table in order to affect the debate. And you show up at these meetings, they're usually boring, and you show up at political meetings. And a lot of people don't. And if you do and you're principled, you can go far. And because people need bodies. And before you know it, you're the county chair. Before you know it, you're on the state executive committee of the party. And before you know it, you're in a position to certify someone like Robbie Starbuck onto a ballot or oppose someone who shouldn't be on the ballot. So it works both ways. And, we want the parties to be strong. Our establishment wants the parties to be weak and to kind of have a vanilla flavor throughout the system. And if you want distinctions and you want activism, you got to learn how to win. I mean, and way to do that is by participating in the process.
You need activism. The left is really good at organizing phone call and postcard letter campaigns. What are Republicans going to do right now after what they're doing to these candidates, namely Robbie Starbuck? Because this is BS. They're just lying, saying he's not a Republican so that they can boot him off the ballot. Well, every Republican needs to figure out how to organize. Every individual who believes in Robbie Starbuck and is sick of the corruption in this machine, staring in the face of it, needs to get organized and figure out something. Because I'll tell you what the left would do. They wouldn't stop calling. Huh. You would get 50 leftists, and they would just hit redial and then wait for the phone to answer and then start complaining when they hang up, hit redial again, and their phones would be off the hook. And just 50 people.
Yeah, I mean, each leftist has all 50 of their personalities call in to complain.
Right,
Right, exactly.
That's right. All their headmates.
Yes. Yeah. I just wanted to say before we move on from this topic is that one of the best ways that you can do this kind of activism is to call your local GOP. Like if you're in Tennessee listening to this, you should talk to the GOP there in Tennessee and tell them that you're not okay with this.
They're crooked.
Yo,
people
for sure.
need to protest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
volunteer. And, you know, for instance, on the election systems, if you don't like the way elections are run, go and participate in
Yes.
running elections.
I'd also
You
like
can
to
get
build-
hired. I mean, you know, the unions, you know, they're going to get hired. They make it a point to get hired to count votes. Well, Republicans and conservatives should make it a point to be hired and count votes. That's the way to ensure that elections are more fairly run. Actually count the votes according to the law.
At the time, we have a corporation tallying votes in private, which is Dominion, for the last presidential election, which is incredibly disturbing. I think we need to also, in addition to what you're saying, Tom, build a parallel system where you can vote in their system and vote in this system that's transparent and see if it lines up.
No.
Yes.
No, Ian.
Well, no, and
You know
yes,
what we
Tim.
have to do? We have to free the code.
You're right. Of big technology firms that are functioning in the commons, their code needs to be free. This is This is the freedom of speech of the 21st century.
Voting.
We need to free the software code of the voting machines. Yeah, we need to be able to reference those.
These companies that are doing digital vote counting, that code needs to be public, and here's what needs to happen: before the election, there should be an audit where a person from each party and an independent goes in with an approved tech person who then audits the code and presents it to the public and says, here's how the code of this machine works. Every single line is available for public viewing.
I feel like even then they could give you the code and say this is how it works, but then go in the back room and make it do other things with that code. So you need it on a blockchain too.
Honestly, I think they're bold enough that they would show you the actual code, and if anyone pointed out any problems with it, fact check, false. There is no problem with the code. It's
not
only
if
a
you've
conspiracy
got,
theory.
No, because remember when Democrats were screaming there was going to be fraud in the election, like in was it 2019 or something? They were like, we got to do something about this, and then they all started shutting up. When you have before an election and no one knows how things are going to swing, you see one thing wrong, and the Democrat is going to be like, no, and the Republican is going to be like, no, fix it, we object, because they don't want to lose.
Someone's in on it.
Well, my view on these companies, Dominion and Smartmatic, they've come up with these outrageous lawsuits against critics that seem to me mighty political and over the top. And, we want these companies to be neutral, right? And it seems to me they've thrown down the gauntlet on one side of the political narrative when it comes to our elections. And I would be very suspicious, whether their code works or not, about letting them work in any states.
Yeah, the thing that they're going after is people claiming that they're fraudulent. I'm not making that claim. I'm claiming that I can't see the code, so I don't know if it's fraudulent or not.
Well, I think whether you see the code or not is almost irrelevant to the question of, are we counting ballots in a way that people are confident that the individuals casting the ballots are eligible to vote? And I don't think that's true. If the code works, illegal votes will be counted accurately.
But I think
that's not going to solve the problem.
I'm not. The issue is so much deeper than just, I suppose, illegal voting, because you can track those things down. But if California opens their border up and says, come on in, and then the census happens and they're like, look how many more people we get, and they get more votes in the Electoral College, it doesn't matter if the individual votes. All that matters is we know Texas will be blue, and Texas can effectively stuff the Electoral College ballot by bringing in non-citizens.
The system should be set up in a way to, and I think you're highlighting the issue, to reassure people that their votes are going to be counted and counted accurately, and the election result is going to be something approximate to what actually happened. The winner won. Whether it's exact or not, the winner won. And right now, half the country doesn't think that's the system. And so we need to reassure the public. We need to save elections by requiring voter ID, maybe getting rid of the computer counting or make it a lot more easily watchable, and having one day only voting, only emergency absentee voting. If you're getting your head shot off abroad and you're in the military, maybe, that warrants you getting a special treatment. Everyone else show up. But the idea that you're voting out there without any supervision, any party looking at you to make sure you're not being intimidated, or outside the protection of security and our government processes. It's an open opportunity for fraud. And when people don't have confidence in the system collapses.
Well, I'll put it this way. If someone invited you over to their house in, the middle of a big city, let's say Chicago. Chicago's a good example. And they said, you can crash here. We have no doors or windows. They're basically just all exposed and open. And no one will, we've never filmed anybody coming in here, so we don't think it's an issue. Would you be comfortable chilling in there and leaving your stuff and going to bed? You're like, nah, I don't. I'm gonna keep my bag close to I'm gonna wrap my arms around the backpack as I go to sleep, because you'd be like, I'm not okay with this. It's not an issue of whether or not someone did or is in the act of committing an illegal act. It's that, why would you want to participate in an insecure system? Like, hey, come crash at my house while you're in Chicago. The doors, the front door and the back door are completely off the hinges, and the windows have all been removed, but you can sleep wherever you want. You'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Or you go to the bank and they've got black paint over all the cameras, and you give cash to someone standing out front who says, don't worry, I'll get it to the teller. And the teller doesn't keep any records of who gave it to the money and where the money's supposed to be going. You have to have a system in place that survives basic scrutiny. It ain't going to be perfect. I mean, we were doing an analysis of voter roll lists in New York and California, Oregon. In New York, I think they removed 10 names in the entire city over the last 4 years. They should have removed hundreds of thousands of names. So you've got the list are full of people who have moved away, and that's just like a big pool of voters to pull from illegally to engage in fraud. And that undermines the system. And the courts have found, interestingly, Tim, that you don't need to prove fraud in order to justify these rules. It's the appearance of fraud and the opportunities for fraud that states have an interest in stopping, to reassure voters that your vote's going to be counted. So the left says we don't have to prove fraud in order to justify voter ID and to make sure that people are actually citizens, for instance, before they're allowed to vote, which is, to me, the voter ID everyone agrees with. Well, it doesn't work if non-citizens can get that type of voter ID that allows them to vote.
Yeah. I want to mention this story because we did miss it and we shouldn't have. But Julian Assange extradition order issued by London court, moving WikiLeaks founder closer to U.S. transfer. The difficult thing with the story on Julian Assange is I called it a political execution. What I mean by that is the goal of everything they did with Julian Assange, putting him in lockup. He gets jammed up in the Ecuadorian embassy, is just to end his ability to work. They can't, there's that thing where Hillary Clinton was like, can we just drown the guy when he was in London or something? But it's an important story, and we need to I want to make sure we keep it in the spotlight to the best of our abilities as this stuff is going on, because what happened to Julian Assange is one of the most corrupt and overt displays of evil that we have seen from our and other governments to silence somebody who was a thorn in their side.
I think the Justice Department and the FBI are irredeemably corrupt, and that means that even charges against people who may have done something wrong, especially in a political context, can't be trusted. And it's a horrible situation to be for a country that respects the rule of law when its top enforcement agencies put their thumb on the scales all the time.
The liberal economic order really changed this country. Now they're using it as the spearhead of a global military force, and it's be damned the consequences. He exposed collateral murder with WikiLeaks, and you see these helicopter pilots laughing as they're blowing up civilians, and
they weren't laughing.
They were joking with each other and go get them, yeah. And that's I think as a human maybe we didn't need to see it, but it woke a lot of people up to the fact that there is a liberal economic order in a military-industrial complex. For better or worse, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, let's go to Super Chats. If you have not already, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show, share the URL, or just tell your friends about it. It really does help. And become a member at timcast.com to support the work of our journalists. And you will also get access to exclusive segments of this show coming up around 11 or so p.m. So we'll have one of those up for you tonight. Again, timcast.com, and smash that like button. Let's read. We've got GBP who says, happy 420. And he put an emoji of fire and broccoli, a person with their mouth open and smoke. Broccoli? Well, I guess it's as close as you can get on emojis,
I
right?
figured out the
leads.
history of 420.
Yeah.
Most credible
did.
story traces to April 20th, Marin County, California, 1971. 5 students at San Rafael High School would meet at 4:20 p.m.
Yes.
By the campus statue of chemist Louis Pasteur to partake. They chose that specific time because extracurricular activities had usually been ended by then.
Yep.
So, you know,
That's what I read too.
Partake.
path of least resistance.
Memetype says, Ian, halfway through your Michael Malice appearance, you're an incredible person and a genuine light in the world. Much love.
Thank you so much, man. And I was going to shout it out at the end of the show. I'll do it now. I was on Your Welcome with Michael Malice. It dropped today, 420. What's up, Michael? It was epic. That guy is like otherworldly. He's an incredible interviewer, a kind soul, a beautiful man, intelligent person. I highly recommend going to check it out at Your Welcome on YouTube. Michael Malice. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about our show there. I'll see
Right
you guys.
on. Michael Malice is one of our favorite people. Absolutely. All right. Titus Flavius Josephus says, aimed primarily at Tim, but curious of everyone's answer. Is being authoritarian always evil in your opinion? Or would you side with an authoritarian that is generally aligned with you? Use authority to maintain liberty. Being authoritarian is not always evil, but it's not about maintaining my alignment. It's about the how it's wielded, right? So in an emergency where you're facing a very serious existential threat and a legitimate one, I think it's fair to say that we take extreme measures. The problem is that is exploited for political gains, and then if you give the government the ability to seize power with an emergency, they will make up emergencies to seize power. So I think there are instances where, and it's tough because authoritarian could mean a couple different things in the context, but adhering to authority isn't always bad. It's varying degrees. For me, I'm way down on the libertarian spectrum, but I am not at the bottom. I'm not an anarchist. I recognize some authority is actually a really good thing, and it helps people live safely and securely. But when you start getting into the more overtly and over-authoritarian is when you get evil, corruption, etc. So I don't know if you guys want to...
Yeah, I'm thinking of Dungeons and Dragons alignment. You got lawful, neutral, and chaotic. And, you know, I think what you were saying earlier is that you're neutral in that because you see the value of law, but you also see how dangerous it can be when it's used improperly. Sometimes laws are very evil. Like you have a lawful, and you got to break the law. Like Thomas Jefferson's very, very direct about that. If law is misused, it's our duty to make a new form of law.
Well, law that's evil isn't law. So, you know, to the degree we have the rule of law and their authority arises from the rule of law is properly understood and legitimate, that's appropriate. But authoritarianism in kind of the traditional political sense is at odds with self-government, and that's almost always wrong.
All right. Thomas Sidebottom says, Tim, one of your videos convinced me today to delete my Netflix account. Then I bought a subscription to the Daily Wire and Timcast.com, right? Absolutely. But what we need to do, instead of telling everybody, cancel your Disney, cancel your Netflix, we should be like, start making shows. Start becoming members of channels and companies that you do like Timcast or like Daily Wire. So we've got our mobile app is coming out soon. So we're first testing, iPhone, then we got to test Android. Then we want to do OTT over the top, so Roku, Apple TV, it's all those things, so that we can make more shows and just have them on that app. So instead of me being like, you should get rid of Netflix, I'll be like, you should just use our app instead, and we're gonna make non-woke content.
Yeah, you're a competitor. This is the thing. We compete. Judicial Watch competes against Netflix. Libs of TikTok competes against the Washington Post. We are competitors. So you are supporting, someone who competes against those entities when you support Timcast, when you support Judicial Watch, when you support everyone here at the table, you're supporting competition in the information space.
Right on. Waffle Sensei says, I don't mind if Disney has its own government operating on their property as long as I can have my own personal government on my property as well.
Well, some would say you already do.
Just get 100 people, and 100 people is all you need to incorporate a town, right?
I don't know what the rule is.
Then you start passing laws, make speed traps.
Can you have a corporation of 100 people and then turn it into a town?
I have no idea. Maybe that's what we'll end up having.
You go to New Jersey, you'll find out how many people can cause. There's a town every 3 minutes.
Well, out here in West Virginia, the issue is they use the town as the postal identifier, but there's no town. It's like a random house in an unincorporated part of the state. Scott Odom says, Tim, even if the buildings aren't up to code, they're grandfathered in as existing buildings. But if they ever remodel, they're in trouble. Well, that will be really interesting. Jason Belch, or say Bellick, sorry. I'm a member and 25-year coder and technologist. Which email do I use to talk to you guys about possibly working together? Members, pitches? I think spin the UFO.
Sure. I can pass that on to whoever needs to get
Yep.
it.
So we have a lot of super chats asking about Gonzalo Lira, and a lot of super chats, but they're all just saying he went missing. So we did mention that a while ago. They said the Daily Beast contacted the Ukrainian government to alert them, and now he's gone missing.
I don't know who that is. Who is it?
He was a pickup artist, like a dating coach guy, YouTuber. I think he's not from the United States, I believe, but he was an American citizen, went to Ukraine, making videos, talking about the war. And then this article comes out of the Daily Beast that took some of his content out of context, like quoting him, and make kind of really the article makes him seem like a Putin apologist and that he wanted Russia to win the war or something. And then he just disappeared.
Man. All right.
Dangerous time.
Yeah, don't mess with
Simulation.
your government during a war, that's for sure.
Simulation 115 says, Tim, have you heard of the Fuster Cluck? That is New York State's redistricting. What's going on there is crazy. Have you been following that?
I have, and I think it got fixed a little bit.
What's been going on?
You know, what happened is you had the Democratic majority in New York basically throw out all good sense and issue an extreme partisan gerrymander, and the courts, last time I checked, looked askance at it and threw it out, but I'm not sure what the status is now. I mean, we had a big fight in Maryland over that. We beat back Maryland's Democrat supermajority. Court found it to be extreme partisanship, and we won. So, you know, it's fun. You can win in these blue states if you're principled and you're follow. You know, the rule of law is a glorious thing in this country, which why the left hates it, because it keeps them in control or within control.
All right. Captain Tanker Joe says, hey guys, I want all of your opinions on something. Why does public school push college so badly? It seems like the public school system is pushing people away from the trades to brainwash the generations into debt. Thoughts?
So I have a couple thoughts here. I would say, firstly, it's a system which is set up to have a person continue to exist within the system. So a lot of young people become teachers, and it's basically because they've never really considered going out and doing something else. Also, maybe this is a little more cynical, and I'd probably like to flesh this out more. I don't know that this is their intention, but in fact, I would say it probably isn't, but I find it interesting that it helps them to abdicate their own responsibility to prepare children for the world. So what we constantly hear is people who have a high school diploma aren't able to get a job and perform at the level our economy requires to the point where they could earn a living and support a family. So we should give them 4 more years of education for free instead of going, hold on, what has gone wrong in the 12 years of education that's already being provided that they're not fully formed adults who are able to compete in the workforce for decent jobs?
School's broken.
Exactly. Public school's a disaster.
All right. Let's see.
And I want to say fundamentally, I completely fundamentally disagree with the idea of it too. I'm not saying we're going to make it work.
Top-down anything, for the most part, is pretty risky.
Yeah.
All right. Caesar Seven Hills says, what is the show's opinion on a childless tax to stimulate the birth rate? More like a family tax cut.
Yeah.
The more kids you have, you get tax cuts.
Yeah,
I'd rather not
Yeah.
punish people for living single lives.
I mean, you implement a high income tax, then you say we're doing a tax cut for people with families, and you're doing that either way.
Well, you know, those who don't have kids aren't paying in the long run for their support through the Social Security system.
It's true.
So you're in many ways, childless folks are not providing enough tax revenue over the long term by bringing in a new generation to support their Social Security and other benefits they get in the older years.
It's absolutely correct. Not enough people talk about that. The Social Security system completely defers responsibility, so people don't end up having children and raising families.
Grant Arnett says, earlier today you said you're going to see Doctor Strange, but why see it after the laundry list of reasons not to? There's a challenge, but it's like I'm saying, I don't think we should go to people and tell them to give up the content they like. Abandon, delete your Netflix. We should be saying, create alternatives, and then once the Daily Wire has a competitor, we tell people, you know, make sure you're supporting them as well. Competition is more important. I think it's unreasonable to tell people, stop watching, you know, this show or that show if you like it, because people want entertainment. What we need to do is compete and win. That being said, there's great reasons to avoid Disney. Absolutely. I think we also don't want to isolate ourselves from the culture, which is why we have Pop Culture Crisis on Timcast. There's no real perfect answers, but my view of this is we want to engage with the culture and be a part of it, and then pull people towards our sphere of influence to change things with the culture we create, with the culture we are participating in. And part of it is I just absolutely love Doctor Strange and want to see the movie. So recognizing that, I can't expect to go to someone and say, give up all of your favorite movies. Don't watch Star Wars. Don't watch Marvel. Don't watch any of that stuff. No, that's unreasonable. What is reasonable is to be like, the Daily Wire's got a superhero movie. Watch that. Because at the very least, then you're supporting Daily Wire's expansion. If you really want to, go full ideological, then get rid of all that stuff for sure. I think the reasonable approach is to maybe tone it down and maybe give more to people you do like.
Yeah, you're practicing mental jujitsu with people, and they are coming at you. When you're in a conversation with someone, they're coming at you. Telling them to stop coming at you is not going to stop them. You need to move their energy into a new place.
Personally, I can't keep track of everything I'm supposed to boycott and avoid. It's just too much.
So we just have to win the cultural battles. Daily Wire is doing a fantastic job. I'll tell you guys this. I joke about Chicken City making a bunch of money and being so successful, but you need to understand, we just made a minute-long little short, which is totally family-friendly, and it's like Looney Tunes style comedy. This is a family-friendly show where we are going to get parents and their kids watching this stuff. We're going to be pulling them towards our sphere of influence. So you bring them over, you say, hey, look, there's no political messaging. It's just a bunch of chickens. It's fun. It's funny. The kids watch it. We make little shorts that are fun for adults because I thought it was hilarious, but the kids can watch it too. You build the culture. Then we have Pop Culture Crisis, hosted by Brett Dasovic and Mary Morgan, where they comment on the culture and talk about these issues because we want to participate in this. We want to, it's like looking at a group of people all talking about something and being like, I should be able to stand here and yell at them and they should agree with me. It's like, no, go in there, shake their hands, talk to them, be like, what do you think? Hey, come over here. I want to show you something. That's what we're trying to do.
No one gave a crap about me in high school until I started acting. And then they all started laughing, and then they liked me. Do the same thing in reality with business.
And then, after everybody liked him, he started talking about magnetic fields, and they went, I didn't know that.
That's when you get them. Once you got them, then you can tell them all about the magnetic nature of the universe, God's energy flowing through you.
Exactly. So I'll put it this way. In sales, you can't approach someone as an other. If you see a guy in a suit, you can't act like a hippie. If you see a hippie, you can't act like a guy in a suit. You have to meet people on their terms. So I think for the longest time, one of the problems conservatives have had is that they talk radio and complain. Oh, what these woke leftists are doing. We do it, we complain about it, but you got to do a little bit more than that. That's why we basically have one political show, which is this. And then we've been focusing on making cultural shows and cultural content so that the people who already know these things can watch something else. They have an alternative to Disney or Netflix, and then people who don't watch this might not care to watch it, but might really enjoy watching chicken cartoons with their family or something.
Or Eric Weinstein's theory of geometric unity. Open invite, Eric, if you want to come on some Friday.
Yes. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Let's say Rat Napper says, Taylor on Matt Binder's podcast confirmed that she knew an address she had was in fact a private home address. It was the picture Libs of TikTok snapped of her at her door, confirmed by Taylor. Well, there you go. They knew what they were doing. Weird. They just lie about it.
I mean, also, if they did, like I said, if they didn't, that's worse. Isn't this person supposed to be a journalist?
Yeah, I wonder
how would you not
what's
know?
Worse.
But everyone else figured it out after they published the story.
It's the same with Psaki. Like it's either what's worse, that you're really stupid or that you're malicious. I don't know.
Look, you're an activist. The politics comes first. All the other things come second, which is respect for privacy, accuracy, and fairness. That's not journalism that story's about. That was activism. It was an effective voice against transgender extremism and the abuse of government employees of school children, teachers. And they wanted, and it was having a political impact, and they needed to get it taken down. And the way to do it was suggest misconduct and direct the accountability for that fake misconduct at an individual. And everything else was secondary to that.
Right on. We got Lon who says, this is for Seamus towards him doing the Biden shower dog cartoon. Well, there you go.
Come on, man. Maybe we're gonna have to do it.
David-
If anyone, by the way, like I said, on Twitter, just please tweet the link at me if you have found the audio of Biden actually saying this, because I would love to have that accompany the animation.
Just use his actual.
Yeah.
I think your voice would work fine.
Oh, you're too kind, man.
Yeah, but it would be
Come
really
on,
funny if
man.
we just animated over his own.
That's what that's what we did with our corn pop video.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
All right. David C. Cook Sr. Kronk Sr. says, I just find it humorous that now we can pull audio out of context of Ian saying, I'm just picturing Joe Biden in a towel. Nothing bad can come
my.
of that.
At least I can see the towel.
Yeah. Troubling.
All right.
That's a good one.
There you go. That's funny.
Okay. Oh, man, my nose, my allergies.
Get your water.
Angsta says, so Joe Biden hurt his ankle, coming fresh out of the shower and lifting his dog's tail. No wonder Major was biting people. He was being abused. Maybe.
Fair
I think Joe's embellishing, perhaps. I don't know. All right, let's see. Let's grab another one. Let's just scroll down and see some super chats. Brent Anderson says, for the Irish hobo.
Who could he possibly be talking?
Who's that?
I just want to point out that Seamus has Ireland behind him, but he's from Chicago.
That's true. That's true.
Are you Irish,
Spend
Tom?
most of my
But his name is
childhood in
Seamus,
summer-
so-
Yeah, but look, it's not my fault. I don't go around going, "Oh, top of the morning to you. I'm an Irish lad. Why don't you refer to me as one?" It's just people call me that. It wasn't my choice. It wasn't my decision. I know. Oh, he's a plastic patty. He wasn't really born here. I don't care. I'm not telling people to call me this.
Seamus?
He's got
How
armor.
come every Irish
an
pub is
admission.
called Patty's?
Because it's actually one guy.
It's one guy. Yeah.
It's people they'll never tell you that,
It's like
but
McDonald's.
Patty has monopolized.
It's like McDonald's.
yeah, people don't know. Also, Irish guy.
No, but for real though, I mean, I every time I go to an
Patty
Irish pub,
O'Brien.
it's Patty's.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
There's a burger
it's-
patties too, but it's with the T. Is that the same?
You're asking too many questions.
Yeah, you can't ask that.
It's Steve State.
Patron saint of Ireland. That's why it's
That's
Patty.
right.
Aaron Royer says, we just canceled our Netflix account and used the money to sign up at timcast.com. Keep up the great work. I'm not going to tell you not to do that.
Yeah.
Because I would prefer to, as Jeremy Boring said, stop giving your money to people who hate you.
Yeah.
Give it to me instead.
Yes.
And that is brilliant. Brilliant. It's a great line.
That is good.
I'll say it again. You know, we've seen so much of like, guys, cancel Hulu, cancel Disney, cancel Netflix, and everyone does, and then signs right back up later when a new show comes out. So I'm like, that's not the issue. The issue is, yes, cancel them, but they need somewhere to go. So until we can say, leave Netflix and go to the Daily Wire, you know, I guess we can say that now, but the Daily Wire has like, what, 3 movies?
Yeah, I think they have 4 shows as of like a few weeks ago or 3
Working
weeks
on
ago. I don't know, to
shows.
be honest. I really don't know.
They need more.
Yes, they do.
And once there's a big library, then you can be like, there you go. There's your culture. There's your entertainment. I do think it's good if you want to cancel your Netflix account, not support them. I don't have one.
I've never had
I'm just
one.
saying I don't want to be. I want to make sure that you're still involved in the culture so that you can have influence in culture, so that we can all say that new show that's coming out called He's Expecting is dumb and I don't want to watch it. Yes, I know. Arnold was in a movie called Junior, where he was a pregnant man, and that was silly as well. Making a new show about it, especially now, I'm just not interested in
But
it.
back then, that was also, I mean, that wasn't, I've never seen it, but it was intended to be satirical as far as I understand. I don't think they were trying to say men can actually have babies.
Well, this new show is basically about
With
like,
the new one, I'm talking about Arnold.
There's a
the
big difference
show-
between Milton Berle in a dress and Drag Queen Story Hour.
You know, we
right,
need,
right. But the
we
new
need-
show He's Expecting is not about trans men. It's a fictional scripted show
It's an
where
anime.
some weird it's a live action show where something happens where all of a sudden a man gets pregnant and freaks out, like, how is this possible? And they're like, we don't know. It's not an issue of someone being trans or anything like that. It's a regular dude, and it's very much like Junior. And so I'm like, it's happened before. I just think it's dumb, especially in today's context.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the present cultural context, it definitely seems like they're trying to spread a different message.
And they do, in the trailer, do say sis and stuff like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
we need
right.
more action movies that rely more on the actors than on the freaking spectacle. Forget about the great graphics and crap. We need good, powerful acting in action.
Let's see. Itsy Bitsy Spider says 420 was the police code in California for a marijuana violation. This was in use in the 90s. The mo you know. Is that true? That sounds like it's not. I
Sounds
don't-
true.
I don't think it's true. Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
I'm a fact checker on Twitter now, so one of my fact checks is sounds true.
Yeah. Joseph says 401ks are a Ponzi scheme.
Is that true?
I don't think that's true.
Matter of opinion.
They just keep
I'm
your
not
money
sure about
until it
that.
inflates and it becomes worth a tenth
Social
of it or something.
Security is though.
Fact
right?
check,
Just
it's
you're
worse than
paying
that.
in. Yeah.
All right, let's grab some more. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, man, we were so close to a once again experience in the history of Timcast IRL. The classic quote of, no, you're wrong, Ian, you're wrong.
That was good.
All right.
Speaking of being wrong, I just wanted to clarify that he's expecting is based on a manga. The Netflix.
You said
show
it was
is.
an anime.
I said it was. Well, my point was that it's
Right.
based on some kind of Japanese show, so it's not
Right.
technically like some kind of leftist propaganda as such. It's a weird story about a guy getting.
I mean, if you buy it, like if someone writes a story and then you're like, that fits my agenda, I'll take it.
yeah,
What's the difference?
yeah.
Right. Liberation Matrix says Tim has planning begun on an apprenticeship internship program for the first time workers to further promote healthy culture building for the youth. Great opportunities through Freedomistan with this. Oh man, we are building as fast as we can build, and it's not super easy. But I'd love to have some kind of internship thing.
You guys want to start a city?
I don't know if I'd call it internship. I'd just be like, we'll hire some minimum wage people to just like kind of hang out and do stuff and help us with like
Small
odd jobs.
Well, you know, I would recommend that you do internships because you can credential some good young folks for further work in the industry. So and interns are a great way to do that.
Yeah, a lot of it's personality, so you get a chance to meet people and figure out if they work with the chemistry of the environment.
I mean, you get the intern comes in and does work, and he has a resume or she has a resume line that says, you know, I work for one of the top podcasters and internet personalities in the country.
I've had
news organization, whatever they want to say about it, and they go on and you never. Well, I can't tell you. I've been in this business long enough to see interns be in positions of influence, and it's gratifying to see. And it's important that if you're in the business that we're in terms of trying to educate and save the country, to get young people involved in the process.
So we launched a couple of original shows. We hired people, and we've got these shows that we started. But one thing that we want to do now is we've begun scouting out talent in cultural politics and entertainment. So the idea is to find someone who seems to be passionate, working really, really hard, and is just not necessarily cracking that barrier and taking off. But so we're looking for people who already have a long history of content, proven talent, and then we want to basically fund shows and get them involved at Timcast. Like basically like buy their show and have Timcast launch it.
The intern thing is a debate, and like an ethical debate I've had at mines, particularly corporations in the past and now, that like, is it right to use, because you're basically using labor for free, which is like,
that's
I want to make sure they get paid. But what I'm going to say is you have to take into account political capital. Capital isn't just money. Capital is your ability to create as well.
I have to stop you. You cannot legally have unpaid interns anymore since the past 10 years.
Okay, good. But you pay them very little.
You can
or
pay,
minimum.
They have to be paid hourly wages.
Oh,
Yeah,
minimum wage.
Yeah.
It depends on the program. If it's an internship affiliated with the school, there may be rules about what you're able actually to do because they're getting a benefit at the school that they can't.
So the thing about environments like this is you have an opportunity to create your career, which is worth way more than money. So
right, but so unpaid interns cannot do anything that is considered a critical function in the company.
Good.
So
I think that's righteous.
So that means if we had someone as an unpaid intern and then said take the garbage out, can't do it.
Cool.
They can sit there, hang out, and watch. Maybe get the coffee, I guess. But if you have them do something that's essential function, that's where you get hit. This happened 11 years ago, I think, or 12. No. Maybe it was 10 years ago, 9 years ago actually. I think it was around the time I was at Vice. Supreme Court ruled, and then all of a sudden Vice I think this is what happened. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they got rid of like all of their interns, and all these people were devastated because they were like, I'm at Vice, I'm in line to get a job, and then they were like, Supreme Court ruling, everybody out, can't have you. Wow. And then a handful of them started getting wages, so they were like, I didn't get eliminated. Yeah, but can't have unpaid people, can't do it. I wouldn't do that anyway. I would never have an unpaid position.
Yeah, unless they got some other form of capital. It doesn't seem right.
I suppose if people. If we had an intern who literally just hung out and did nothing, I wouldn't pay for that, but I wouldn't do that anyway. Like, I'm not going to have people come over here and just sit around doing nothing. Yeah, but we could stand for a couple people who literally just hang out and get paid minimum wage to do odds and ends.
Because I was like, even if like you could make them famous, put someone on a TV show and make it the top, even that's not ethical to not pay someone, because I think that's Hollywood figured that out already. You can't not pay people. They want that job. Doesn't mean you can't not pay them. You cannot pay them. So they had to create a union to protect these people.
Well,
these actors, the SAG and stuff like that.
Consult your labor lawyer and get some interns.
All right. Tarkina Mayer says, is a YouTube Timcast IRL membership the same as a Timcast.com membership? It is not. Timcast.com is a website where you sign up and then you get access to the paywall and stuff. We're also looking for opinion writers and analysis for paywalled content. So if people want to read analysis and opinion articles, they have to pay for it. But we want the news to always be free. I don't want to have like a breaking news story like, Washington Post doxes someone's private address, and then you're like, I need to read this, and it's locked. We want that to be free. But the challenge then is, how do you pay for the journalists to write it? It is a conundrum these days. Basically, we're just like, I hope you guys like what we do enough to where you will be like, I'm going to pay because it's good they're doing this work, and CNN is bad and we don't like them. So, you do what you can. We also have other strategies for monetizing the website. One of the things I've never been a fan of is automated ads. So we've been doing something for a while now. You'll notice, for those that don't use ad blockers, the ads on the website are for our own book, Tales from the Inverted World. We're trying to just make our own products. So, InfoWars has their own health products. I wouldn't go that far, and making like Timcast Mega Brain or whatever. No, but we'll do stuff that we're into. Like Shane Cashman wrote a book working for Timcast.com, and we advertise. We want to sell it. Another book is coming out. We want to sell it. We could theoretically make our own 3D printed figurines and sell them and do all this stuff.
I'm still laughing about Timcast Mega Brain. Please make it.
Timcast Mega Brain?
Yeah.
Let's do it. That'll be the one we do make. Timcast Mega Brain. Get it now. And,
You take the pills, then you have to put your beanie on, leave it on overnight for it to work.
Hot head.
Yeah, that's right.
It stimulates your neurons.
So
Make one called Hot Head.
I don't care for any of those things, to be honest. Like, so we do reads for BioTrust, and it's simple. I started doing keto a while ago. I like it, the keto stuff. I skate all the time, and it's really intense, and I like the collagen. It's really simple. I'm like, hey, shout out BioTrust. These are things I can actually understand and use. But when it's like, this blend of tree barks and flowers will like make your eyes, bulge, I'm just like,
yeah, I want to know
Well, makes your
exactly
eyes
what
pretty.
it does chemically in your body before I start selling it personally.
yeah, we've talked about doing some stuff like a protein MCT mix or something like that. But we want to have our own products. So right now we have books. For what we do on the website, I'm not interested in weird ads from weird companies. So we want to move away from all of that, and we've mostly done that. And we want to start making our own stuff. Like the Daily Wire gave us the Truth Bomb. I'm like, that's a great product. It's literally just a paperweight, and it's a truth bomb.
It's great.
We need stuff like that, like, crystals or whatever.
Okay.
We'll just sell our own stuff.
You got me thinking.
All right, everybody, if you have not already, Beanie Brain, that's what Luke said.
Ooh,
Beanie
Luke,
Brain.
I was just thinking about
If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show wherever you can if you want to help us grow, and go to timcast.com, become a member. We're going to have that segment coming up at about 11 or so p.m. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me at Timcast. Tom, do you want to shout anything out?
Hey, great book out. We got judicialwatch.org, obviously. People should donate to our work. Also, the Republic Under Assault is already out in hardcover, and the paperback's coming out next month, so look for that.
All right.
Freedom Tunes, by the way, it was great having you back again. Good
Thanks,
discussion. Freedom Tunes is my YouTube channel. If y'all want to check that out, we uploaded a video yesterday that I think was pretty funny. Audience did too. It was our #1 video of the past couple months, and we're releasing one tomorrow that I also think is going to be an absolute banger. You guys are really going to love it. Go check it out. I love you.
You can follow me, IanCrossland.net. I'm still on fire from my interview with Michael Malice on Your Welcome, episode 203. Go check it out on YouTube, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you think. Leave a comment in this episode, too, and let us know what you thought about this show. I want to hear from you.
Yeah,
Bye.
Sure. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight, guys. Thank you, Tom, for coming out. Ian's episode sounds fantastic. I'm going to have to watch that after the show tonight. You guys may follow me on Twitter and minds.com at sourpatchlids, as well as sourpatchlids.me.
And as a special announcement, if you are someone listening and you have experience running a sandwich shop, send an email to spintheufo@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are planning on opening a sandwich shop and then a venue. But I'm not kidding about that sandwich shop. Maybe we'll have coffee.
Fresh bread.
fresh bread.
Different kinds of bread.
Remember I told you about the man sandwich?
So
This is what I was saying. That you walk in and there's no frills, there's no BS. You're like, I'm a man. What kind of meat you want? Roast beef, turkey, or ham? I want turkey. Done. And they just do your sandwiches there. Like, we don't waste time here. They bang on the table the whole time. And then the chips. It's like potato chip. That's it. That's all you get. You get potato chip. There's one flavor.
I got ideas. I'll tell you. It's totally opposite of what you're talking about. So it's definitely going to work.
I just want like a simple. I want to open my own sandwich place because I love simple, healthy food.
Sounds like
I don't care for like give me the triple cheese, double bacon, chicken ranch. I'm like, dude, give me roast beef, tomato, lettuce, cheese. Like, I love Jimmy John's. So we want to do something like that, but we're also going to be opening a venue. And then, but we'll talk about it because maybe we'll do coffee instead because I also love coffee. My family did own a coffee house at one point.
Coffee does rock.
Yeah, for a couple of years before we went out of business. And so maybe that's what we should do. We should bring that back, and then we will exclusively sell
Krigler Coffee.
Krigler Coffee.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best coffees in the world.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.